So today's podcast is pretty massive in the world of Canadian firearms insofar as we're talking about authorizations to carry, or an ATC. An ATC is something that's typically viewed as unobtainium, meaning it's almost illusory the way that it's issued by the RCMP Firearms program. But I've kind of templated the process, and we've been successful since about 1994 onwards, and been on the bleeding edge of every new authorization to carry recipient for wilderness carry, for work reasons. Every single time a new policy change has been made or there's changes to regulations or legislation. I've always held this pretty close to my chest because I didn't want to jinx the process. And everyone who came to us for the authorization to carry has always been somebody who needed it for work reasons. And it just made it streamlined and easy for them. I was put in touch with today's guest. She'd been working with the National Firearms Association for quite some time, and they were unsuccessful in getting her ATC. When I got in touch with her, in no time flat, she was issued her ATC. She met all the requirements. It was just a matter of making sure you check the boxes in the proper way. I figured, and she figured, that this is something that probably shouldn't be held close to the chest. This is something that if we let everybody know the process and how it goes through, it'll normalize it and make it far easier for other people in the future. It also has an interesting side consequence, which is in Canada, there's a handgun freeze that's in effect where you can't purchase new handguns. However, if you need it for work reasons, that's one of the ways individuals can be issued a handgun. For this podcast, rather than doing it in the studio, I took it on the road, and we went to a pretty cool place. We're actually, if you're watching this, we're inside a barn. Luckily, you don't see the floor of the barn. We needed to control our lighting in some way, but pack rat had definitely taken up a home in this place, and there was a mess everywhere. But hey, we braved it. We sat in there. We recorded the podcast. And I also combined this into a hunt. My wife and I went hunting. It was a successful hunt. We've got meat in the freezer, had a great time. I used my Nanook pack for all of the camera gear that I took for traveling. I used my Nanook hard bow case for my bow. And the reason I bring that up is because Nanook is a Silvercore Club brand partner, one of many. You get 25% off if you're a Silvercore Club member when buying any Nanook product. I like Nanook because they're Canadian made, they're robust, they're durable, they look really cool, it works well. If you've got expensive equipment and you want to make sure it's well protected, throw it in a Nanook case, rest assured. If you're not a Silvercore Club member, I would highly recommend it. I mean, put aside all of the brand partners that we have and the amazing discounts that you get. You also get free training, free online training, quite a number of courses that are on there, discounts on Silvercore products. You get insurance North America wide. There's also that other interesting piece of the puzzle that kind of goes along with this podcast here. Included free in every Silvercore Club membership is the RCMP approved gun club membership. So if you own restricted firearms and the RCMP requires you to show proof of belonging to an approved gun club or range, the Silvercore Club is an RCMP approved club. Without further ado, let's get this podcast rolling. All right, this is going to be a fun one. I've been looking forward to this one for a while. I'm sitting down with Canada's newest ATC authorization to carry recipient. I've been watching your social media for a while. We've been chatting back and forth for a long time. Love the adventures that you're on. Professional guide, professional trapper. Welcome to the Silvercore Podcast, Rachel Ahtila.
Travis, thank you so much. Had some accolades there. I've got a lot to live up to.
Man, there's more. I could go into more. Oh. Should I go into more? So I've talked about getting an ATC in the past on the podcast. I think what we're going to call this one, maybe just ATC Masterclass, Authorization to Carry Masterclass.
Absolutely.
So I've been doing this since about 1994. I got my first authorization to carry when I turned 18. That would be around, I don't know when that was, late 90s, mid 90s. And every province in Canada is going to issue authorizations to transport a little bit differently. Over the years, they've worked at standardizing the process. But that said, there is no standard process for an ATC issuance, we have had many professionals from different backgrounds who've gone through and they've tried to get their ATC on their own and they failed,
Yes.
miserably.
Yes.
And the reason I'm told, I've been told this by a couple different firearms officers, is that they have a mandate to make getting an ATC difficult. One firearms officer told me, he says, "Oh, we don't want to have everybody running around willy-nilly with a handgun on their hip." And I said, "Why not? I mean, really, what is it your concern if they are properly trained and properly licensed and they have a legitimate reason to be out there?"
And jumped through the 3-ring circus, because let me tell you, it is not an easy process.
Right. And that, I mean, holy crow, that's where I'm going to really love your fresh perspective. And full disclosure, I've been doing this for a long time. We've got a 100% success rate for every applicant who's come through. These are legitimate people with legitimate reasons to have it. 100% success rate for anyone looking to be a trapper, working in a remote wilderness area. They're working
different industries.
Yeah, working as armed guards. And I didn't want to talk about it. I didn't want to tell people about it because I was concerned that this secret sauce that we've had for a very long time would get burnt out and people would stop getting it. But in talking with you, I've come to the realization, based in part on your background and your assurances and your perspective as well, that we should normalize this process for everybody.
Well, and I think, Travis, we've stalked each other through social media, and I think that's where the grand conversation really came together, because I almost made a plea. And coming into, for people that don't know me, I've been a professional hunting guide for a decade and a half, as well as I work remotely, as a trapper now, also as a rancher, and I've had several professions in oil and gas as well, that in Canada, we are 99.9% rural for a lot of our jobs. And when you get across, up from the 49th parallel. But when I originally thought, I would love to be able to carry a pistol years ago, there was no answers. No one would help me. And so it was very serendipitous that we crossed paths when I made a plea last year. And I'm really excited to dive into this with you, because there are people out there that, for life-saving matters, this could actually make a difference. And I know for myself as a professional guide, my only regret is I wish I would have done this as soon as I had got my restricted license. The amount of times where carrying a pistol on your person, having interactions with wildlife, taking care of clients, now even working so remotely in the winter on a trap line, and even here on a cattle ranch in the remote part of British Columbia, there are so many instances that, if anything, as we dive into this podcast, I really hope people take away this. This isn't a fast track. This isn't cheating off a test. This is giving you the tools for the people that this actually qualifies for. And I think that's one thing, like you said, you didn't want to debunk it and make it so it's like, oh, this is the easy way to go and get a test, guys. It's like, if you're dedicated and you're truly passionate about this as a tool, this is a podcast for you.
1,000%. But it begs a question, and I think I know the answer. Why didn't you apply after getting your restricted license right off the bat?
The biggest thing, I hit roadblocks. I would try and go to different gun ranges and I would be blocked. They'd be like, oh, it's too hard, or there's a test, and no one wanted to offer the test. So I literally started going to every single range when I would travel through, and I got nowhere. I at the time, I literally was a gypsy. I had a pimped out storage locker. And so part of having a restricted firearm, as you know, is you have to have a place of residence. You have to have, that's where your home address is, a locked safe. You have to have all the prerequisites. So part of the reason I didn't pursue it earlier is I didn't have a fixed address. But as I matured, settled down my gypsy ways a little bit, I started to go, okay, you know what? I wanted to pursue this. So at the end of 2018, 2019, when I was wrapping up in the territories, I started going down the rabbit hole a little bit more. And correct me as I'm wrong. Obviously, this comes from my firsthand knowledge. What I had been told was I'm a BC resident wanting to travel to the Northwest Territories. Traveling through the restrictions, at one time I had been told that I would need to be certified in BC. I would have to travel through the Yukon on a special ATC permit, go to the Northwest Territories, jump through a bunch of hoops, but that BC and the NWT work together, Alberta and the NWT, and BC and the Yukon. So I started having this convoluted story that it was like, wow, this is like chasing a unicorn. I have no idea how to go about this.
One thing I think I should probably make very clear right off the bat, and I can't speak for you, so I'll ask you this. Have you had legal training? Professional legal training, gone to school, or you passed the bar test? You're not a lawyer?
I'm not a lawyer. No. Nope.
Okay. I have not had professional legal training. I'm not a lawyer. So everything that you and I are talking about here is going to be from our experience. We have had legal training in certain areas, but not as professional lawyers. So we are not qualified to give legal advice.
Absolutely.
So I think that's an important thing to get off the go. And I should probably throw the word allegedly at the front of this podcast, because I'm going to make references, and you might as well, to things that have been relayed to you, that you've heard. And so we'll just throw an allegedly over the entire podcast.
Absolutely. These are two people that are just trying to help everyone else. And exactly, allegedly, this is what have happened. And by no means, I hope it's easier for everyone else.
100%. Well, okay, so you brought up a couple interesting things. You talked about traveling from British Columbia, Northwest Territories. So in the Firearms Act, they talk about geographical extent, and your possession and acquisition license is going to have a geographical extent across Canada. Different authorizations that are issued are going to be done provincially. So an authorization to transport, an authorization to carry, these are going to be provincial things that are set forth. They are written down in the Firearms Act and the Firearms Act regulations. But on top of that, the different provincial bodies, and we've got opt-in and opt-out provinces. So some will say, we're going to do our own thing. We're a province and we're going to take care of things ourselves. Others will say, no, we're going to fall under the broader federal RCMP firearms program, and we're going to work with them. So we've got opt-in and opt-out provinces. They will make policy. So we have legislation, we've got regulations, we've got policy that we're dealing with, and this is just somebody who's a civil servant working in their office trying to come up with the best process that they can. And then we've got the last piece of the puzzle, which is going to be those civil servants trying to understand that policy and apply it to those regulations in the framework of the legislation. And there's going to be personalities that you have to deal with too. So this, I'm hoping, is going to give experiences that I've seen, that you've seen, that kind of encompass all of them.
Yeah.
And I think that's an important way to kind of frame this. If somebody's listening to this and they want to go through and get their ATC, just because I'm right doesn't mean I'm going to get it.
Absolutely.
Just because I meet the laws doesn't mean I'll get it, because I might not meet the policy. The policy isn't a law, and you could argue that up and down. And it might just be the personality that you're dealing with as well. It's unfortunate, but that's life. That's how it works. Absolutely. So you talked about geographical extent, and there was something else that you brought up that was kind of clicked in the back of my head as you're talking, and it'll come to me as we go through, I'm sure. Okay. So
might have been where I was geographically at home, as far as like.
That's it.
There you go.
Okay, 100%. See, I'm glad you're sharp.
Hey, I had 2 cups of coffee this morning. We're perking right along.
I love it. So home, you said I didn't have a home address.
And a lot of guides don't.
A lot of people don't.
A lot of people don't. We're, especially in North America, in the Northwest, we're transient. We're chasing jobs. So that, for me, I would love to you to help explain that, because there's a lot of people I think that speaks to.
And there's a lot of people that don't actually have, let's say, a mailing address, right? There's going to be people who live on reservations, and they're going to have different. And they say, well, my house is fifth one down past the big tree, or whatever it might be. And this is me talking to the firearms officers and having gone through this in the past. I remember there was a fellow passed on a long time ago. He had Lou Gehrig's disease, I think ALS there. Mike Gallen, and he had a gun shop back in the day called Mike's Musket Shop, and multimillionaire, really interesting fellow. He was the one that when you're talking with my wife earlier about staying in the place with all the rats. So multimillionaire, left all of his money to his wife and his kid, and made himself a cinder block hut out in Lillooet, where the Bridge River and the Ellicott River meet. And his mailing address at that time was all to a post office box. And I was helping him out there for a while. So while I was there, my mailing address was out at that post office box. This isn't an uncommon situation, right? There's people who will not have a physical location. There's going to be people who don't necessarily store firearms at their residence. They store it at a gun shop. They store it at the business. A business might have a business firearms license. So you don't actually have to have a fixed address in order to have restricted firearms.
Really?
Really. And
there's a mic drop.
Yeah. So that was kind of an interesting one that I've learned. I know that a lot of people say, well, and I remember I went through this one too with the chief firearms officer and going back and forth, and specifically on the fixed address requirement, because they said, no, you need it. And finally, after about close to a year later, our chief firearms officer was able to come back and say, here's where we get our legal authority. I had to go to the parliamentary records, and there's this thing called the order prescribing forms and documents or something along these lines. Because we ask for it on this form, that's where we get our legal authority. And I say, that doesn't make any sense to me, right? It's supposed to be, it's on this form because there's a legal requirement for it. Not, we put it on the form. It passed all the scrutiny to be on the form, and now that's what we're leaning on for our legal standing. So
take home from that: if you're a guide, if you're a transient, if you're a worker, you can actually move forward on this.
100% you can.
There
you don't
go.
have to have.
That's a big thing for me that I was told because I didn't have, and like I said, allegedly I was told because I didn't meet certain requirements, and doing due diligence, I didn't want to, leave a firearm in a safe at, whose ever address I was most common to go to.
Right.
Because I was trying to do the right thing. Right.
Well, as long as you're the one with control over that firearm, right? You can
with the lock to the safe, which I had, and everything else. So there you go.
And when you think about it, like my first ATC was for an armored car company I was working for.
Okay.
I didn't own the firearm. They all belonged to the company. I go there, I pick up the gun, load it up, holster the thing, go do my work, come back, unload it, leave it there. So there's going to be situations where people have them stored either under a business license or under their own individual license, but storage doesn't, as long as the firearms program has an understanding of where they are, because that part is actually written out in the law. They have to know where the guns are. So you just let them know.
Yeah. Absolutely. There you go. That's a big thing for myself. That was probably one of the biggest hindering moments. Was I didn't know if I qualified. And again, I couldn't find a very staunch answer for it, a yes or a no at the time. So it wasn't until 2020 I had the opportunity to partner with Sig Sauer right before COVID. So all of a sudden, all of my ambitions and dreams to be able to have a pistol started to come true. Unfortunately, the world shut down. I was supposed to be in transit going to Arizona for 6 to 8 months on a work permit. So I was going to have my pistols down there.
Right.
So unfortunately, COVID happened. And then for the listeners that might not know, in Canada in 2022, it became part of legislation that we were going to have a pistol freeze or handgun freeze. And so I had been scrambling because in my head, I still thought I have to have a permanent address. I didn't belong to a gun range. I had a horse trailer and a truck, and I was working calving jobs and guiding jobs. So I let a lot of my preconceived notions drive the fact that I couldn't go after securing those pistols to get them moved here to Canada.
Interesting.
So...
yeah, and honestly, I think your story isn't unique. Out of all the people that I've worked with, I hear it time and time again. Oh, you can't do it 'cause, right? And they've got all these different reasons. You can't do it 'cause, or I heard my buddy and they said it's essentially illusory. If a law is so far out of reach and it's so unobtainable that it's deemed to be illusory, then it can be struck down or it can come under review. Well, again, not a lawyer, but there's a legal process for all of that. So my hope and our hope, your hope, through doing this is that we take that illusory aspect to all of this and we put it into a bit more of a concrete.
Absolutely. So check one, you don't have to have your permanent fixed address.
You don't.
As getting your ATC. And I think that's a big step moving forward. Had I known that years ago?
You would have had it. So the other interesting thing that people need to understand, and a firearms officer took me aside and told me this, he says, look at Travis, we've got a mandate to scrutinize ATC applicants really, really carefully and to deny as many as possible. We don't want to be issuing this. We don't want people going out, this is our mandate, this is what we've been told. So whether that's true or not, or just something the firearms officer took me aside and was blowing smoke, who knows, right? But if that's true, and I have no reason to doubt the veracity of that statement, that there is an internal mandate to not issue them, then people have to understand, okay, if I'm approaching this, I have to understand how this game is going to be played, how we're going to play ball together, so that whoever it is that has their name that has to stamp off and say they're giving it to you can be provided all of the assurances that they're doing things properly, and they can go back to their boss and say, I had to because the law said ABC, and I put up my points and my objections, and note this person's a legitimate candidate and they should get it. So how you talk and deal with that civil servant, if you have offhand comments or jokes, and they'll get
It's very much a work interview.
It
In
is.
my experience, you know, I was very thankful to cross paths with you because I was able to bounce ideas and just even certain the way that I phrase things, you know. People have to take this with seriousness. You are asking to carry a pistol on your hip. I mean, in the States, you can go and buy one and you have it home in half an hour. Here in Canada, we've had legislation that has been abolished in the past, but it is a life-saving tool, but it is also, you know, a weapon. And I think people, you know, my biggest fear is that people are going to take this podcast and go, oh, well, I'm just going to go apply for it. But like you say, you have to be serious in your intent. You cannot come across as flippant. You cannot come across as this is just, you know, a means to an end to carry a pistol to feel like John Wayne for the weekend. Right?
Well, that's it. Well, and it's funny that in the States, like I talked to Brad Brooks, he owns our galley, and he says, I can't believe you guys aren't afforded the ability to go hunting with a bow and have a handgun for protection against bear, right? And like in their world, this is just completely out to lunch, ridiculous, right? And in our world, it's like, oh, a handgun, that's extra dangerous, that's extra scary. And really, there's no difference between your handgun and your rifle, except the bullet doesn't travel as fast, doesn't travel as far, it doesn't do as much damage. It's just smaller.
But it's been criminalized. In Canada, pistols and, you know, restricted rifles are criminalized. I remember the first time I touched a pistol when I went to the States, it was like the forbidden fruit. And I literally sat back and I was like, you're just going to have to pretend like I don't know what I'm doing with this. And then the people I was with, I said, run me through everything. Because in Canada, and I hunt, I guide, I have been around weapons a long time.
Yeah.
But even my own prejudice on the pistol was everything that we had been taught. So I think a lot of it is stepping away from this prejudice that we put on this tool. Like you said, it is still a projectile that comes out of a shorter, smaller, more compact firearm.
And you brought up a good point there, too, because you called it a weapon. And gun people are like, it's not a weapon, it's a firearm, right? Well, actually, in Canada, if you look at the law, a weapon is what? It's anything used, designed to be used, intended to be used to cause death or grievous bodily harm to another individual, or used to intimidate or threaten those things. And I'm paraphrasing the law. I've actually got it here, but I'll paraphrase it. And without precluding the generality of the foregoing, includes a firearm.
Exactly.
Right? And then a firearm could also just be the frame or receiver of it. So in Canada, guns are legally considered weapons.
Exactly.
So that's part of the idea and framework that we're also looking at when we go through this is if you come from the States and you're like, I just want this thing to protect my life, the laws say they're here, and you're going to be treated as an individual who's looking for a weapon. So let's take a look. I've got a couple before I get into it.
Absolutely.
Did you want to say anything before I?
No, I think I think this is a really great precursor because, you know, we have to identify the major thing. As gun owners, we have to have a registered address because years ago we had to be able to register all our firearms. You know, there's been different legislation that's moved through over the last however many years, however far we want to go back, everything seems to change. So I think it's important to people to know that if they work in this industry or an industry that's relatable, you can own one. As long as you obviously are solely responsible for where it's locked, where it's kept, you know, speak to that if I've misrepresented that.
Yeah, no, you can own it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And two, obviously this has to be taken seriously because this is, you know, a life-saving device. It is a tool, a very handy tool at that. And I think that sets the stage as we jump into it.
Beautiful.
Let's find out who can carry these.
Okay, so we've got the laws. These laws, you guys can download them. You look online, these under the regulations, circumstances in which an individual needs, and they put the word needs, so that's an important one. Restricted firearms or prohibited handguns for the purpose of Section 20 of the Act. And so restricted firearms, generally we're talking about handguns in Canada, but there are other restricted long guns. Prohibited handguns, it lays out those are going to be, 32 and 25 caliber. Maybe not, depends what you're using them for, but they will fall in the prohibited handgun area. 105 millimeter or less barrel length. When I first was carrying a gun around, it had an under 105 millimeter, so it was prohibited.
That's prohibited, yeah.
Prohibited handgun.
Yeah.
So I'll read through some of the laws. I won't go through all of them, but I think it's important that we just kind of look at the words as we go through. We'll brush on the first one. For the purpose of Section 20 of the Act, the circumstances of which an individual needs restricted firearms or prohibited handguns to protect the life of that individual or other individuals are where A, the life of that individual or other individuals is in imminent danger from one or more other individuals. Imminent being the key word, like, okay, right now, not like going a year from now, imminent.
Yeah, imminent.
B, police protection is not sufficient in the circumstances. And C, the possession of a restricted firearm or prohibited handgun can reasonably be justified for protecting the individual or other individuals from death or grievous bodily harm. Okay, so we know what death is. Grievous bodily harm, do you know what that is?
Grievous bodily harm, I would imagine if someone's intending you harm, you're putting yourself into a situation where you are unarmed.
So the courts have generally, from what I've seen, again, not legal advice, but they've looked at grievous bodily harm as being something that's, let's say, broken bones, major disfigurement. So your amputations would be a form of grievous bodily harm. Someone's going to try and break your bone. They say, okay, I could defend my life because we don't know where this is going to stop. Unconsciousness would be one of them, would be considered grievous bodily harm. So if you're getting choked unconscious, and that happened here a number of years ago, it was in the newspapers. I think it was at it was a hockey player or a hockey game. Someone had a few too many drinks and ended up shot by the police in police custody, and they said, well, this person was trying to choke the officer unconscious, and that constitutes
grievous bodily harm.
Grievous bodily harm. Severe cuts, so these are going to be deep cuts.
Slashing with harm to intent for death.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's generally kind of what grievous bodily harm kind of looks at, so I think it's good that people look at the framework. The number of people who actually get an ATC issued for this are slim to none.
So what industry would that be then?
So what I've heard anecdotally, and we do work all across Canada, dealing with different police agencies. What I've heard, allegedly, this is going to be, let's say, a judge is dealing with organized crime. There's a verified threat, and they say, well, here you go. Here's something. Make sure you protect yourself, right? The times I've heard that happen, they've just given the individual a firearm, or the person had a firearm. This is sure not a problem. You can pack it. Despite the fact that if we read further, they say you got to have proper training, you got to have these things. But if you think about it, if someone's in imminent danger, do we have time to be able to give that training and all that vetting?
Yeah.
So this is one that I don't have the most experience with, aside from working with, I remember a gun store back in the day. There is concern over being robbed, and it's happened at other gun stores. There's one in British Columbia. This is going back a bit, but robbery. I believe the owners were both killed in this one. And so, anyways, this gun store owner looked at it and says, "I'm dealing in an industry. It's the criminal element. It's desirable for them to be around here. I want to be able to protect myself." So they went through. They did the training. We met all of the different points. And the firearms officer came back and said, and it was a game. It was going back and forth. Like, we don't want to issue it, but we can't really say no. And it was kind of like a funny, aha, I think we've got you here, right? They said, we will issue your ATC for what you've requested because you've met all of the requirements, save one. We just need you to give us a letter from the chief of police saying that police protection is not adequate for you. What chief of police is going to write off and say police protection isn't adequate? And the reality is, what's that old saying? When seconds count, the police are minutes away. Like if you need the police right now, and there is a threat on your life.
Well, they can't be everywhere.
They can't unless they just happen to be in the store at the same time. But they came back afterwards. They said, well, I got to hand it to you. You've come the closest to getting issued one of these that we've seen under your circumstances. Anyways, that was sort of my experience on that one, as well as all the anecdotal of judges or people that are being given one hastily because they need one, and then immediately after that threat's no longer there, it's revoked.
Right. Gotcha. So short-term, temporary. Yeah.
That's it. Yeah. So if there's an imminent threat, away we go. Next one is where you fall in. And this is the one where we've had 100% success rate with everyone that we've worked with. Lawful profession or occupation. For the purposes of Section 20 of the Act, the circumstances in which an individual needs restricted firearms or prohibited handguns for use in connection with his or her lawful profession or occupation are where A, the individual's principal activity is the handling, transportation, or protection of cash, negotiable instruments, or other goods of substantial value, and firearms are required for the purposes of protecting his or her life or the lives of other individuals in the course of that handling, transportation, or protection activity. So that's an armored car guard, essentially. So they're going to get one. Their principal primary activity is transport of cash or negotiables. Interesting ones that we've seen that have been issued under there would be a guy had a stamp business, and he's transporting stamps back and forth.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and that was considered a negotiable instrument or other goods of substantial value. I've seen them for marijuana transport. We
are in BC.
We are in BC. For transporting of firearms, if that's where you're transporting them back and forth, and they're issued one for that. So there's a whole bunch of use cases, and it's pretty wide open. Basically, if an individual wants that license, their principal activity that they're going to say is handling, transporting, or protecting of cash, negotiable instruments, or other goods of substantial value. And the important one in all of that is a gun isn't there to protect the cash or the negotiable instruments or goods of substantial value.
It's to protect the person.
That's it. Yeah. It's only there to protect life. Someone says, give me all your money or I'm going to kill you. Here's the money.
Yep.
There it is. It's easy, right?
Absolutely.
Then they want to take that next step, and they're going to put your life in the threat of death or grievous bodily harm. That's when you start getting into the justifiable use of that firearm and the use case for that firearm. That goes into a whole different discussion on use of force, and probably
negotiations and everything else. But I think that's a very important way of actually depicting that, is that in that situation, they're going to try not to use the firearm. You're going to use justifiable cause to say, you know what, here's a token you're after, take it.
Yes.
I think that's the biggest thing, is that just because you have your permit and your pistol doesn't mean you necessarily always want to use it. You don't want to be flying off the handle. So that's where it comes into the rationale and the mindset behind it. I think it's hugely important when people are taking into this as consideration.
What do they say? If you're a hammer, everything looks like a nail, right?
I haven't heard that one in a while, but I think that just definitely falls in suit.
Right. Oh, I got my gun. There you go. Now, where do I use it? Here I go.
Start looking like Yosemite Sam.
That's right. So it's interesting, that mindset, because like in the States, they've got...
Shoot first, ask questions later.
Well, in some states, right? But they also have, why is it slipping me right now? I've got one. It's your carry permit, your CCW, concealed carry, and right, and some are going to be non-concealed. Some states they have to have them concealed. Like in Washington, if you break concealment, you're having a problem. But they get people young, macho, got my CCW, and I'm going to be the hero. I can jump in. I can help the cops out now, right? Or there's a bank robbery happening. Here I go. And they emphasize to a very high degree, like, no, that's not your role, right? Something's going on. You don't interject yourself into danger. You leave. If danger finds you,
You protect yourself.
you have that to protect yourself. And that's what you're saying, a very good point for people to understand. And when you're training people, you can train people to the point that they're just rabid dogs and they're ready to pull the trigger on anything that moves, or that they're so intimidated based on the laws that they don't draw the firearm in situations where they should.
Yeah.
So in the trainings world, finding that healthy balance where a person uses it in a justifiable way, as they should, is important to protect their life, and also knowing where that the law stands. When we get into trapping and working in remote wilderness areas, the same thing applies. It's not a two-legged predator that you're worried about here. It's now a four-legged. And there are times when, okay, you're allowed to use it when you should, but it shouldn't be your first resort that you're going to just because you got the gun.
Absolutely.
Okay. Here we go. Now we're getting right into the territory you're going to be comfortable in too. The individual is working in a remote wilderness area, and firearms are required for the protection of the life of that individual or other individuals from wild animals. Or the individual is engaged in the occupation of trapping in a province and is licensed or authorized and trained as required by the laws of that province. You're both of those.
I am.
You're one of those unique people that have both of them.
Absolutely. And let me tell you, my God, did it feel good when I had both permits come to my door.
How long did it take? That was one of the Instagram questions. How long did that take you?
4 years.
4 years.
But I had a little bit of special circumstance because obviously I had to get pistols. We had a handgun freeze. My preconceived notion that I couldn't have it unless I had a permanent address. I kind of did the classic textbook, tried to be good, but realized in being so good that I actually was hindering myself. So from the time that I actually got the pistols here in Canada, it's been from my submission date for my application. I hate to say it, but it was actually pretty quick. And thanks to Travis here, I actually was able to get through it because I had to learn a lot of why I was going after it. Not only because, obviously I wanted it for personal protection, but trying to help illuminate that for the greater audience. And that's the thing that in the 4-year process, I feel like it was a pilgrimage, but it has also made me appreciate them as a tool. It has also made me furious with the current freezes that people are not able to acquire them for a tool, for a life-saving device. And my biggest conquest now is I want people to know that you are empowered to find the right tools to make your job safer. Everyone wants to go home at the end of the day. I love what I do. Truly, it's been the love of my life. And I love taking people on adventure. But a great deal of my entire career has making sure that they make it home safe. And so when I'm taking people into the backcountry, putting them on a horse, riding through the buckbrush, hunting game, we're putting ourselves in the perfect storm, touch wood, that you hopefully never have to deal with. But there are so many people that do have encounters. And it is my greatest hope that people can take this information and apply it to their own lives so that they don't have themselves caught with their pants down, so to speak, and they have the tools to make their job safer at the end of the day.
Once we started working together, how long was it?
So I submitted my application in December.
Okay.
That's a 2-part answer as well because I didn't have the right information. And I know we talked about that. So I submitted it in December. I didn't mail it in. I electronically sent it. That was the ticket because I also was coming into my first trapping season. So December, I officially got my paperwork the beginning of May. So, 6 months, 7 months. Problem is I originally submitted my application for requesting the ATC without having done the actual test, the proficiency program, because there was gray areas in the legislation, and this is just my own opinion, but there wasn't a consistent line saying, go ahead and do your proof of proficiency, send in your application. Correct me, it's the 5493 or whatever form it is that you send in the application for the permit. But I was told that this permit was at a standstill because I didn't have the rest of it.
And it's going to take a person going through these things to think very carefully as
Yes.
they fill it out,
Yes.
and to read things carefully and to question, so that it's clear in their mind if they're dealing with a firearms officer or a civil servant and they say, well, you need this first or you need that first.
Yeah.
And just say, okay, not a problem, right?
Exactly.
I have no problem complying with whatever the requirements or policy are.
Yep.
But can you give that to me in writing so I make sure that I've got some sort of paper trail?
Absolutely. I'm just trying to reference it here. But yes, that was, I think, the biggest hang up for myself. Here it is. What is this form here? The form that in question is the 5491E. So that is the authorization, the application for the authorization to carry restricted firearms and prohibited handguns. So I was in a bit of a special scenario because I'm very excited and honored to work with Sig Sauer. I had 2 pistols that were a part of my package that were meant to come to myself. I had my restricted license. You know, obviously I could take them to and from the gun range here in Canada, but I wanted to go after the ATC. But because so where my mix-up is, Travis, if we're going to dive into that, is not only did I have these 2 pistols, they were under a company at the time. So my big hang-up is that I was training with pistols once I finally got them to my address, which took 3 years, is that because they're registered under the address, to get your ATC, you have to prove proficient on the pistol that you hope to then have your ATC acquired to. So I started jumping through all of these rabbit holes to train, and that's where I thought I had to have that first application done to be able to transport them to and from lawfully and legally, to go after my ATC. Yes, online you can do your online portal. You go through and you have your authorization to carry or transport. So to go to and from your gun range, you have to call it in, submit it that way. When you have restricted, my problem is that they weren't registered to me. Right. So I ran into hiccups. I was able to work under a business license because I am an ambassador for a mutual company. So I was able to kind of circumvent and go another route to be able to train. But in this, I had all of these little claw hooks that kept coming in that looked like they were blocking me.
And I think one of the difficult parts that you had was you had a firearms officer who was more than happy to help out, but they've got a job. They go in every day. They're not going to lay their job out on the line to do you a some sort of special favor. They want to make sure their I's are dotted and their T's are crossed. And it's a lot of times when people are applying particularly for an authorization to carry, this is new ground for a firearms officer.
Absolutely.
And they're going to have the exact same sort of, I don't know, but I was told that you have to do this, and I was told, and that's where this podcast will helpfully create a bit more normalcy or a normative process.
Absolutely. So I think stepping back to So when we talk about timeline, it was November where I actually submitted that 5491E. I heard crickets. So I started calling the CFO of British Columbia and I said, look, this is the program I've submitted to. They said, well, have you actually done your proof of proficiency? And I was like, well, no, because it looks like I have to submit this application before I jump through this hoop. And I think that was right around the time in November that we started communicating back and forth. And you're like, well, I think you can go ahead and do this. I know you can.
Yeah.
So that's where in my timeline, because I didn't have a rule book saying X, Y, Z, this is how you get to the formula and say your alphabet. And once I had submitted that, I then went right ahead and I started practicing at the range. And therein lied another problem because I found out that the registration of my one particular firearm that I was going after and challenging for my trapper's application was actually misregistered. It was misregistered as a prohibited, even though I had a very heated conversation, not heated on my behalf, but I was scared witless because I thought I was in contention. Right. And here I had been traveling to and from under a business license. I had pictures of it and I had measured it. But when I was caught off guard away from my pistol driving to Prince George, they're saying you have a prohibited firearm, like hell's bells and whistles are coming down. Yeah. And I remember calling you in tears and I was like, I'm screwed. I'm never going to get it.
I remember trying to talk you off that ledge.
There was a ledge and I was hanging on by a branch.
And I said, they're wrong. They're wrong, right?
You did.
You have nothing to worry about. Make sure you cover your butt with paper, essentially.
Absolutely.
They said, but it's prohibited. Right, but you're under a business license, and a business license is licensed for prohibited, and you're properly listed.
Yeah.
In the same way that I carried a prohibited firearm for a few years there working for an armored car company,
Yep.
you were doing the exact same thing, and then we dug a little bit deeper and said,
Got
can,
measure
you,
tape
can, you,
out.
can you get the tape measure out?
Yeah.
Can we see if this guy's actually prohibited or not? And it's interesting because sometimes I can see in myself I'll have a bit of an oppositional approach when dealing with a firearms officer who, in my mind, or any sort of person who's in a regulatory position, and in my mind, I'm like, they don't know what they're talking about, right? They're wrong, right? And it always comes back to my head. There's a old poem called The Stop Sign. His way was right, his will was strong, but he's just as dead as if he was wrong, right? Okay, the guy's like, oh, the other car's got a stop sign, I got the right of way, doesn't look like they're going to stop, but nope, that sign's, I got all the rules on my side. Just because you're right, this person was right, he was dead right? Just because you're right doesn't mean that's a way to approach it. So that's where that personality part comes in, because a firearms officer dealing with this may or may not have known all of those different points.
Yes.
I don't think that firearms officer wanted to see you made into a criminal, wants to make sure that they're assisting you, because they're a regulatory body. Their job really is to help bring people into compliance.
Absolutely.
That's their job.
And I think that was a very big turning point for me, because obviously I said, sir, with all due respect, I don't believe I do, but I'm on the road right now. Let me get home, and how can I contact you? Because I want to make this right. I could have flown off the handle and been like throwing people under the bus, but I ended up having a relationship, like a good friendship over this, where in a business sense, where I was like, look, I'm trying to do this to the best of my ability. There are so many gray areas here. What do I need to do and show and help? Because this is something I'm very passionate about. I am working by myself. I live extremely remotely. I also, the other part is that I was challenging a higher caliber, because I have a caliber that's in between. For dispatching wildlife, it's a 22 caliber.
Yeah.
For protection of life on your trapper's permit, it has to be a 40 caliber, like a 10 mil. I'm at a 9 mil. And they do have the authorization, if in due cause, to help, make that restricted rifle go forward.
And we'll talk about that a bit as we go through too. And I think, to go way back on how long does it take, so we have an idea of what it takes for you for getting the permit. The fastest I've seen it is under 24 hours.
Wow. Yep. I was not 24 hours.
Right. So that's the fastest. And every time you apply for your ATC, it's the exact same process when you reapply. Right. However, when you reapply, it's easier for the human to look at this and say, well, they've been approved before. They met all the same criteria as they did the first time. Here we go, right? Unless things have changed on our end, I am now obliged to give them that that approval. So that brings me to one piece of the puzzle that you mentioned there, which was you're being told to do something, and where old me many years back could be like, no, you're wrong. Here's the act. Here's the regulations, right? And I remember I was sitting at a computer, and I had a friend of mine. He's a retired analyst for a large company, and he did strategy for them. And we're having a conversation, and I think he's in his 80s right now. And I said, oh, hold on a second. I hammer something on the email, and I get back to the conversation. He says, Travis, can I ask you what was so important that you interrupt our conversation to send an email and then get back to it? I said, oh yeah, the firearms program, they said A, B, and C, and I'm showing them that they're wrong because I just copied and pasted the act and showed them. And he says, how's that working out for you? I said, honestly, not super great, right? He says, when you're dealing with anybody, any civil servant, any person, why don't you ask them questions? Why don't you put them into a corner, but give them a door that they can get out of, right? So rather than saying, no, you're wrong, right? Ask a question. Just say, like what you did there was perfect. I think I'm right because the only extra thing that I would say is cover your button paper. Not a problem. I think I'm right, but I will do what you're saying. Can you give it to me in writing in an email so I have a copy of that? So as I proceed forward, or if I'm dealing with somebody else, they know that I'm doing things in a way that's proper. And that does two things. That protects you as you're working through. But when we talked about how every single license is issued as if it's brand new, that systemizes the process. I met it last time. How do I not meet it this time, right?
Yes.
If you do the exact same thing.
And it shows your level of professionalism as well. And I think that
Yes.
was one of the biggest parts, like where I kind of took matters into my own hands and sent that email saying, you know, I had a good tagline, upcoming trapping season, you know, urgent request. And it was.
Yes.
It was very imminent. I am out here by myself.
Yeah.
And then obviously I was able to start a feed of conversation because like you said, everything had a trail. I could back it up. I could also ask the questions that weren't being answered. Or if I wasn't understanding, that's another part is you can ask questions, you can get an answer. But if you still aren't understanding, there's no harm in saying, could you please elaborate?
Yeah. I don't understand.
Exactly. And that was something that I think moving forward on all of the extra training I've done through my other industry programs, you know, it helps. Oh my gosh, it helps.
I like that. I don't understand because quite often people will say, nope, this is how it's done. You got to do this. I don't understand. Oh, well, let me explain it to you. Oh, hold on a second. Yeah, I don't understand either. I see where you're going, right? Because in the same process, people will think, well, this is how it's always been done. Here's how we do it moving forward. Maybe not, right? And just like when I queried our chief firearms officer, 100%, you got to do it like this. I don't understand. Can you show me, right? Took a year. Oh, it's because of this obscure document that only certain people have access to, and it's in the form prescribing. Okay, well, that sounds kind of wishy-washy, but I get it. I was able to get what I was looking for anyways in the end because I don't need to make the person look like a fool. I can paint them in a corner and give them that door to get out. That's not a problem, but I don't need to rub it in their face. And I see that often with when people get frustrated. I see it because I work in the firearms community. When people in the firearms community get frustrated, they're like, you can't do that to me and you can't do this. Yeah, you might be right, but is that helping you? Is that getting you to where you need to go?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that's the biggest thing, you know, is understanding, you know, there is a process to it. If whatever industry you find yourself in, whether you're trapping, forestry, you know, some of the other remote sectors, there's bear monitors out there, they use shotguns and slugs, but you know, for personal protection, who knows, the opportunities might be endless as guides, you know, remote ranching. The biggest thing that I wish I would have known, what process and what applications go first? How can what is the formula for success? I mean, obviously, and like you say, success can be measured in a very different ways, and it does come down to the civil servant that you're working for. And it also comes down to how you answer the questions.
Yes, it does.
And that's where it leads into, you know, if you're getting set up for this, do I meet the requirements? You know, one, do I have a pistol I can train with, or one that's my own, or perhaps I can get access to? Two, what's my next step? What application do I need to do first? So given that I went and did the first application for the submission, not necessarily the right application first. So leaning on you and every program that you've helped with.
Well, why don't we take a look at it here? We've got two different forms here, and one is a form called Chief Firearms Officer of British Columbia and Yukon, Proof of Firearms Proficiency for Trapping. The other one is all the same, but it says Proof of Proficiency for the Protection of Life in Remote Wilderness Areas. Now, this is British Columbia, but they have been trying to standardize it. And if one province does it, it's easy for another province to say, well, I'm not reinventing the wheel. They've done it. They've paved the way. Why don't we lean on them? And it causes them to have to come up with something extra, something above and beyond if they're going to issue a denial. And we'll talk about denials probably at the end of this. Which one do you want to talk about first, trapping or working in a remote wilderness area?
Oh, you know what? Let's start with trapping because I think wilderness appeals to a lot of people, but trapping is a kind of a relic to it. It's not something that's done or practiced in a lot of traditional. I mean, my own nephews were like, Auntie, trapping died in the 1800s with the fur trade. And I was kind of like, well, boys.
We're bringing it back.
We're bringing it back. Exactly.
So these are very similar in approach. So we'll go through trapping first, and we'll just put the differences as we go into the protection of life.
So should we preface this? This is what you should be doing if you're going after the trapping. We've already assessed that you want to be able to shoot, so you should probably have access to a gun that you're going to prove proficient on the appropriate calibers. And the next is, you've met the requirements because you have your trapper's license. Especially for trapping, you have to have your trapper's license.
Yep.
With a trapper's license, you have to be registered to a trap line. That helps move it forward.
That can help, yes.
That can help. Also, private property, permission on your own, elsewhere. So those are the major things. You have to show that you are actively engaged with the opportunity to participate as a trapper professionally.
Yes. And I think the key word in all of that is working.
Yes.
Because that's the one that kept coming up when I deal with the firearms program. Because I said, well, what about working on your cabin? Well, I'm working on a new roof. I'm working on the fence, right? And
which is all things to get ready for the season. You, as a trapper, it is a year-round activity.
Right. So as long as that applies to a occupation, lawful profession or occupation, that doesn't mean it's your full-time occupation. That doesn't even mean it has to be like half the time occupation.
But it's your occupation.
But it's an occupation. So that's something that's going to hopefully at some day bring money in. Maybe not. Maybe it costs you a bunch of money. There's a lot of occupations like that, right? So
there's a few.
Right. It says the proof of proficiency, and this is going to be a qualification course, a shooting course, must be administered by an individual who holds a valid possession and acquisition license, PAL, for restricted firearms at the time of the administration and who is either a range safety officer or a member of an approved shooting range executive or is an instructor for a recognized firearms course or discipline. Holy crow, that's everybody.
That's everybody.
Right?
Absolutely.
I'm a range officer.
Well, that's what people don't understand. You and I both go to the range. One of us has to be the range officer.
That's right.
So
if they don't have a designated one.
Exactly. If they don't have a designated one on staff. Now, there is a point in there where it does say you do have to have your restricted license.
Right.
So that is a key component because when you hand in your submission, they will look up that individual and their firearms license. And if they don't, they will deny you.
One thing I should point out, and who knows?
Or could deny you. I should preface could deny you. Could.
Yeah. I think we should use...
Allegedly.
We should use that language.
Yes.
Could. Because right now what we're reading off of is a document that was created by a firearms officer, probably working and trying to put everything together in a more systemized way. This isn't... I have gone contrary to everything on this document at one point or another because there are special use cases that need to be looked at.
Yep.
Just because it says it in this policy doesn't necessarily mean that's it for you. If you want to get approved in that under 24-hour time frame, like I was mentioning before, just go the easy route. You got your policy? No problem. I mean, just do the work and go through it.
One of the things I will note, though, and this is on the front page for the actual authorization to carry questionnaire. Sorry, do you want to pause? Okay. So one of the big things, too, is that when you're looking at your different, whether you obviously you have to be a trapper for the trapper's ATC or the wilderness carry. So what I found with the trapping one, and this is read right off the application here, is that please note this application is for the licensed trapper to request authorization to carry a restricted firearm or prohibited handgun solely for the purpose of humanely dispatching trapped animals.
Right.
Solely.
Right.
If you wish to request authorization to carry a restricted firearm or prohibited handgun for the purpose of protecting your life from predatory animals while working in remote wilderness areas, you must request a package for the remote wilderness areas.
Beautiful. I'm glad you brought that up.
So that's one of the things that people have to be very cognizant of because when you look at that, it's a smaller caliber as per, this application.
Right.
You can challenge it. But predominantly, I mean, as a trapper, you want to shoot a smaller caliber.
Right, because
with your intended catch. How many times as a trapper have I learned your intended catch might not always be what you had hoped for?
Yeah, we were talking about that right before we
exactly.
record,
So anyways, I just wanted to preface that because I think there's a lot that goes into that because they are two very different applications. So
I like that. Under firearms, this is a firearm used during the proof of proficiency, and we're going to call it a POP because they call it a POP, and it's easier than me saying that over and over again. Must be the same firearm the applicant intends to use for dispatching animals and traps. Okay, That makes sense. If you're going to qualify in the gun you're going to use.
Absolutely.
Makes a lot of sense. Is that always the way that it's done when they issue ATCs? Armor car guards don't shoot their same gun that they carry. They might get a different gun every day if they're a casual worker. So probably the same make and model. Probably. Maybe not necessarily.
And I'm going to give you a hot tip for all the listeners listening. Right now, especially here in Canada, once you prove qualified for your ATC, you have the ability to purchase 2 firearms. That was shared with me by a CFO. Allegedly. So I don't know, but that's and this is just in conversation whether you want to add it or not.
Yeah.
That was something that was shared to me by a CFO, because legally, if you go through, say you have a make and model that you are going to be proving proficient on, that we're at the gun range and shooting. That's where there's such a gray area. Is that for people that don't have pistols right now? That's the biggest question I've had. I don't have a pistol. How can I go and do my trapper's course for my ATC or my wilderness? I fit all the requirements except for I'm still on the waiting list at Coeur Lanes because the freeze came in and not enough pistols came to Canada.
Right.
So what I'm trying to find out, and my biggest request is how can those people train on a pistol?
So Canada can't just deny you the ability to protect your life, right? They can't turn around and completely destroy your livelihood. Well, let's look at how I frame that one.
Allegedly.
Right? Allegedly, right?
Yeah.
If you need to protect your life and there is a legal method for you to do so, they can't turn around and make that whole process illusory, because if something happens to you and you've gone through this whole process and let's say you're mauled by a bear and you could have protected yourself and defended yourself, it's going to come back on that office and that civil servant. So there needs to be ways for them to protect themselves. And one of them is businesses can still get firearms, right? Individuals who are working who need them, there's still provisions for this. It's not well thought out. It's not the act and the regulations and the way that the OACs have been written aren't the best thought out. So it leaves people scrambling in the firearms program to try and figure out how to interpret it. And sometimes the easiest way is I'll just stick my head in the sand, right? But you push, you make sure those who should get it, can get it. So that 100%, that's staying in.
Yeah. So I think that's something that people should know, is just because they don't have a pistol right now doesn't mean that you can't prove proficient, pass the course, and then pursue an avenue to try and acquire the appropriate firearm.
That's right. An applicant can only apply for a maximum of 2 firearms to be listed on their authorization to carry ATC, and a POP must be completed for each firearm. So they put that into there. They say 2 guns. Really, when you get your authorization to carry, they could put whatever they want in the conditions. So go on.
Yeah. So that's the other thing too, is that you can apply for the 2 guns, but you are only lawfully allowed to carry 1 at a time. That is a major thing. You can get props, proof of proficiency, for 2, but at any one time while performing your duty, you are only holstered with 1 firearm.
That's right. Yes. And I always have a difficult time when they say you can always, because I've seen so many exceptions to the rule. And when a chief firearms officer can put in conditions that tighten it down, they can also put conditions that'll make it wider, make the usage case wider.
Yes.
So just because we see it written here doesn't necessarily mean that this is the way that's done, but we'll go through. This is the happy path.
This is the happy path. Absolutely.
Right. The maximum caliber accepted for dispatching or trapping animals is .22 caliber rimfire, unless special dispensation is sought from the office of the chief firearms officer. Hello. That's right.
So, given the fact that obviously I acquired these 2 pistols, the 9mm and the 10mm, and there's a handgun freeze, I couldn't go and purchase a .22 caliber. Now, There have been instances, there was a bear attack in Alaska where an officer was able to dispatch a black bear with a 9mm. It is a lethal killing caliber for protection of life. It is also a small enough caliber that it can be used to dispatch intended catch. So, in my special circumstance, I actually challenged it and I proved proficient with my 9mm. And when I had my interview, I just said, look, I understand I'm asking for a caliber higher than the actual amount. Unfortunately, due to the requirements at the time and the freeze that's in act, I am unable to acquire a different caliber. This one is proficient X, Y, and Z. I would like to move this application.
And they said, not a problem.
Not a problem.
That's right.
Because I was able to give a cognizant, thoughtful answer.
Interesting. Recent one I've just read about, a grizzly bear taken down with a 9mm as well. You know, modern advances in ammunition and bullet construction have come a long way.
Absolutely.
And the whole idea of the ballistics behind these rounds, this one's a bear stopper, this one isn't, this one's a that. Right, shot placement is obviously important.
Absolutely.
But we'll talk about that a little bit more in the other one about calibers and energy and the rest. But
well, and to me, to be honest, one of the big things that I brought home is that, you know, if I'm only allowed to carry one caliber where I'm out here working remotely on a snow machine and I've got my traps and I have my bucket of my lures and everything else, if I have an intended catch and it's an animal of, you know, predatory, there could be wolves, there could be anything moving in. So not only am I putting myself in danger by checking my intended catch, whether it's the right catch or it's something else, heaven forbid, I don't want to be in there with a 22 caliber.
no,
Absolutely not.
no, and you're the prime candidate for wolf food or bear food. You're covered in scent.
Oh, yeah.
You've got catch with you.
You want to see me walk on snowshoes? It is not a fast or a pretty thing neither. I'm wolf bait, man.
100%. Holsters. Holsters must be designed to be worn on a belt around the waist. So they're saying no shoulder holsters, cross draw. Actually, it doesn't say nothing about cross draw.
When you talk to them, they say no cross draws. Even though some of the CFOs I've talked to, it is a proficient way of carrying. Their biggest thing is that when you go to draw, there's an opportunity where your barrel control.
Right, when you're out there with all your other friends trapping, right?
Yeah, exactly. All my other friends.
So, you in the crowded areas with the...
Yeah.
A lot of the thinking behind this falls back on police training.
Yes.
And police training doesn't apply here, but it's a framework that was put in place a long time ago, and the firearms officers may be either ex-police, current police, or exposed to police, and there's a proclivity towards wanting to be drawn to what you know. We do what we've done in the past.
Yep.
So it takes a little bit to move that mindset to something else, but it's not an immovable mountain.
The other thing, too, is when they talk about a holster is it has to have a level of retention.
Right. So we're going to just go a little further and say outside of the clothing and have at least one strap with a snap closure that retains a firearm securely in the holster. You don't want a bucket holster. You don't want something that just kind of plops in and then you're on your snowmobile and you need to use your firearm and you look back and where is the thing, right? They need some level of retention.
It actually doesn't say snap retention when you look online.
Right.
So that's one thing, because in my holster quest, and this is, side note for everyone that's interested, you have to make sure, one, that not all holsters are the same. That's one thing I've learned. It's a very new shopping experience. But your level of retention, basically what they're looking for is it has to, the rifle or the firearm itself can't easily slide in and out. You have to forcibly pull, and it has to make sure that the trigger guard is in fact fully encompassing.
Right. So it says the holster must be designed to completely cover the trigger.
Yep.
Yes. Holster and holster retention device should be used during the proof of proficiency. Oh, there it is. Shoulder and cross draw holsters are not permitted. Well, again, this is a policy. This is a piece of paperwork. There are going to be instances where maybe you want that. For me personally, I don't want a pancake holster, meaning one that flattens out. I want one that's going to hold its shape. Kydex does a good job at doing that so that I can get it back into the holster. I mean, police definitely want to have something like that so they can get it back in quickly the second the gun's no longer needed. In a wilderness environment, you can have all the time in the world, but with bulky clothing and cold.
Cold, wet,
Yep.
heat, anything like that, you have to think of a wet leather. You know, you're trying to ramrod a firearm in and out. I've had scabbards that freeze up on me with my long rifles.
Right.
So that's something to be very cognizant of, when choosing the appropriate holster.
So, and then some form of retention, something to hold it in place.
Yep.
What I tend to go for is something. I'm not a big fan of the thigh holsters, the drop leg holsters, right? I just find hiking around, running, the thing just starts working its way around. Really, the only reason you want that is so you can get a backpack on or a rappel harness or something that will go where your belt line is. So what I tend to do is just find something that'll drop it an inch and a half down below the belt line and hold it on my belt. That way I can still get my pack on and everything else holds and secure. I find that to be the best. Interesting when they talk about talk about holsters. Did we talk about concealment yet?
We just touched on it. So that's the biggest thing, is that you have to make sure that that firearm is exposed the entire time. So that's when you think about big puffy winter jackets and snow pants. I mean, you almost have to have another belt loop outside.
Well, that's an interesting one. So a law firm called me in to opine on an issue where an individual had a trap line and he was charged with having a concealed firearm. So I guess somebody saw him out there with his handgun. They called the police, called the CO. CO's called the police. Police come up. The guy's like, well, you got a gun? He's like, oh, yeah, it's right here, right? And he's motioning. They looking through his vehicle. They can't find it. And I don't see it. What are you talking about? No, here. Like, I don't want to grab for it.
Yeah.
But it was on his hip, and he had a jacket over top of it. Couldn't be seen. And I said, well, what's concealment? Like, there's the actual act of concealing something, right, where you can't see it.
Yeah.
But he's in charge of concealment. Did he intend to have it concealed? Like, it was really light freezing rain out. He had a revolver. You get freezing rain. Even, I mean, I'm certified with Smith & Wesson since my teenage years to work on their firearms and their revolvers. They're robust. They work well. They're designed to work well. But I know areas where if you get a pine needle in it, they won't work, right? Just a little bit. So maybe having that covered up is a smart idea if he wants the gun to work. Anyways, it came down and there's a whole bunch of case law on it. And I got some of it on my phone here. But Falaka was one of the ones that comes to mind. Intent has to play a role in concealment. If you're intending to conceal it, because I was saying, well, if he's standing behind a tree, it's concealed. Did he intend to conceal this firearm, right? If his jacket falls over top, if a clump of snow falls on, whatever it might be, if he's carrying all of his trap game over his shoulder, right?
Yeah.
Does he have a concealed
If
firearm?
I have it when I'm carrying my Martin boxes,
Right.
am I concealing? These are all things you have to be cognizant of. Obviously, I mean, unless you're going to run into CO on the trail, it's like the first thing you do anyways, is just say, hey, this is who I am. I just need you to know I have my ATC. It's holstered on my hip. I look like a gorilla. Like, you know what I mean? So, but then again, it comes back to that communication, like you said. So when it comes to holstering, I mean, obviously, if you run into someone, God forbid, I think he did the right thing, in my opinion.
Yeah,
let them know it's here. I have
did.
no intention, but my jacket might have fallen down, and if they mistake me for trying to lift it up over my hip,
right,
then the next thing you know, they're going to draw.
That's right. They don't want to see that.
So.
Yeah, Falaka was an interesting one. I think he got on a SkyTrain and a bus, so he had a 22 all wrapped up coming back from the range, and someone's like, oh, what do you got there? He's like, oh, I'm going to go on a shooting spree, he says. And the judge says, well, that was a pretty immature statement to make. He's like, that and about 8 other, I think, case law come in, and they say there needs to be an intent in order for concealment to be a charge. And there are times you're going to want to have that firearm protected. I mean, case in point, the ones that you just mentioned. Anything else you want to say on holsters?
No, I think just the biggest thing is just, it's one of those things that you're going to do your best in the field. And actively, I'm always checking my holster, and I think that's one thing, like, because it will come up in conversation when you go through this process. What happens if, your jacket falls down? Well, I'm going to immediately try and, make sure that I'm wearing the right clothing. I'm also going to try not to freeze to death on the trap line. But, it's trying to communicate all of these steps that we're talking about, because while we're having this conversation going through this application process, if anyone can have a takeaway, it's a real human conversation. You are doing the best of your intentions. You are trying to make your weapon present. You're having the right holster that fits your body type. It fits your activity. Branches happen.
Right.
Carrying things happen. Just learn how to communicate, I think, is my biggest thing as we move through this application.
Yeah. There's a dichotomy between communicating with a rational, normal individual in a rational way.
Yes.
And there's severe protectionism, right?
Yes.
Which can find you on the wrong side of an interaction because you're doing everything right and you're being so protective, and you just come across as like, what's this person's problem, right?
Yes.
And then the other side says you're having a normal conversation like you would with any normal individual, to find out you're not talking to a normal individual. That individual just wants to sewer you. So there is that difficult dichotomy that people have to go through. So that's where this normalization process helps.
Absolutely.
It talks about targets. It says steel targets are not permitted. Okay, fair enough. That's what this document says. Assessment, the applicant must fire 6 rounds from each distance, i.e. 3 meters and 5 meters.
Yep.
You're close. You're dispatching an animal. They just want to
You do have to have it within a certain diameter as well. So that is something to really think. So the radius, in the special notes, just to follow up on that, the radius draw on the paper target has to be 2 inches. So they are looking for competency. And that's why obviously you can't have a metal target, because when you're standing 3 meters away, bullet fragments. I mean, obviously on the range, hopefully you're wearing your proper PPE, you're wearing your eyeglasses, so is the range officer. If you're downrange, you're wearing a vest, you've got your flag. I know that's one for our range here. But the biggest thing is obviously communicating this with the person you're testing with, if they've never tested before, or perhaps, just showing your level of competence and understanding.
And having steel targets, like you say, at that distance, fragmentation, ricochets, hopefully not ricochets, hopefully you're using a hard enough steel and all the rest, but all of that they do have guidelines that the firearms program has made for that. Easy to fall on. Tintina Gun Range, they were in the Yukon. I was called in by another law firm to opine on that one with a steel target, a ricochet that happened on that one, and somebody got hit with the ricochet, damage on the face, and everyone becomes litigious. But that was a little different story, but talking about steel. Scoring, here it is. Administrator must indicate the number of hits for each shooting distance. A hit is awarded when a round lands on the designated scoring area of the target. The designated scoring area, like Rachel said, is defined as being a circle with a radius of 2 inches or 5 centimeters. So they want to make sure if we're dispatching some little animal, you can actually do it.
Absolutely.
The applicant must achieve 10 hits for every 12 rounds fired. So that's about an 83% success rate that they're looking for from the applicant. Now, back in the day, they didn't have this. They didn't have this proficiency. They had, you got to use pie plates, or they had all these different ideas. And little by little, they're kind of honing it down and getting it finer. But it's still policy.
And let me tell you, if you haven't shot in a while, you get rusty. And I think this is something that a lot of people are like, oh yeah, you go and shoot. It's like, no.
No, it's a perishable skill.
Exactly. It is a perishable skill. And a lot of it too comes down to your range behaviors and mannerisms, which I'm sure we're about to dive into here.
Tell me.
Because it's not so much just shooting, you are under a timed amount, which I believe it is 20 seconds.
For this one? Did they give you a timed amount in this one?
I believe so.
It doesn't have it in their paperwork.
Okay. I believe I'd seen something, I don't want to misquote myself, but it was, when you approach the target, obviously you're holstered, and that was one thing. It's like hands in the air from a casual position, unholstered, showing that you have good trigger control, or pistol control, and obviously you're proving proficient. Once you're done, holster again. So between each set, it's very important that you show that you have barrel control, that you have good holster technique and good presentation technique as well.
Yeah.
So
muscle control, trigger finger discipline. That's the thing that the instructors will keep saying. You don't have your finger on the trigger until your barrel and your gun is pointed at the target, right? Doesn't mean like I don't have my finger on the trigger until I'm ready, here I can shoot, right?
Absolutely.
Because you can shoot at any point all the way up.
Yes.
depending on the individual, but it's got to be.
Exactly. You do get 3 attempts at it.
Yeah, which is crazy, isn't it?
It is pretty crazy. It's very expensive on ammunition.
But here's an interesting one. They don't cover it in here. So you said 20 seconds, which, by the way, it is a lot of time. Maybe, like, this is the form. I think this is the newest one because this is the one that they provided you. I've seen different iterations of this one. If somebody has an older iteration that has different distances and different timings or whatever it might be, again, it's one of these stick your finger in your mouth, which way's the wind going? Here's where we go. They need somebody to say you are proficient. So if you do something silly with a firearm, they come back and say, well, that somebody said. It wasn't me. It was that somebody, right? I think that's the crux of this. Some people talk about, well, can you practice? Can you have do you have to shoot it cold? Or can you warm up ahead of time? It doesn't say anything about whether you shoot it cold or not.
No.
And there's only one cold round, and that's the first one you shoot. And after that, you're dialing everything in. And if you get 3 kicks in the can, maybe that's 2 practice rounds and 1 test, right?
Yes, exactly. And I think that's one thing is that at the end of the day, they're basically you're just trying to prove that you have good manners, safe manners when it comes to handling a firearm, obviously, especially with a pistol. And the biggest thing I found too is that when I did my test, and this is something that I learned from the SIG Academy, is always communicate. You know, when I'm shooting with someone, it's like, okay, you know what, I'm going to holster. When I'm holstered, guys, I'm going to let you know when I'm going to go live. Just that way I'm being cognizant of the people that I'm sharing the range with.
Yeah.
Right? And I think that's a good practice to really install.
I agree. I like that. It says, if the applicant fails to achieve the minimum pass mark, the applicant must be retested for the failed shooting distance. So that doesn't say you've got to redo the entire course of fire. You just redo that one part that they failed on.
Absolutely.
An applicant can only attempt a maximum of 2 retests for each shooting distance. If an applicant fails to achieve the minimum pass mark after 3 attempts for either distance, the applicant cannot attempt to do the proof of proficiency assessment until after a minimum of 30 days have passed. Again, this is all policy. If you're like, man, I need it tomorrow, I need it whenever, exceptions can be made. Preferably, you're going to the range, you're practicing, you're getting proper training. Right? This isn't for every Joe Blow to come out and say, hey, I want to carry. This is for people who need it, and the people who need it will put the effort in and work. The administrator must submit all POP assessment results, pass or fail, to the Chief Firearms Officer of their jurisdiction. So when you go in, they get recorded. And this one, it says it can be mailed or faxed to, and that's in Green Timbers Way in Surrey, the Firearms Office. I like to call it the new one, but they've been there for like 15 years or so now. But I turn the page on here, and then it's got the application form where the applicant information, their surname, given name, their PAL number gets in here. They put their firearm certificate and their FIN, their firearm identification number, the make, model, caliber, type of ammunition used. You should be using similar ammunition to what you're using out in the field.
Absolutely.
Used to be, people would say, firearms officers would say, you have to use the exact same ammunition that you're going to be using in the field. And in theory, that makes sense. But in theory, communism also works, right? The reality is, I don't know of any police agency that will go out and qualify on the same ammunition that they carry. They'll use frangible ammunition and non-toxic ammo on if it's VPD. That's what they're qualifying with, right? They'll use full metal jackets. They're not using the more expensive hollow points. They're not using the hotter rounds. So being able to use a similar ammunition, and I think they've gone and changed it now, but you still might find firearms officers say it's got to be the exact same ammo. It doesn't have to be the exact same ammo. It should be similar. Should be the same type of firearm. And it goes through, this is type of ammunition used, and then little pass-fail. They prepared the firearm safely. This is what you're saying earlier, right? Talking your way through, I'm getting myself safe. If I got the muzzle swinging everywhere, that's a fail, right?
Yeah, you want to show up to the range with it obviously locked in an opaque case, and you want to have your trigger lock. And I think it's really good husbandry, especially if you're testing with someone you don't know, or anyone. It just, to me, it gives them a safeguard of, look, I'm showing up. It's like showing up to a test with a chiseled pen and a good piece of paper. You're ready for the test. You've studied.
Firearm holstered safely and prepared for pop, pass or fail. Holstering and unholstering a firearm is an art form. It takes some practice. There's some skill to it. There's YouTube videos, or you can, like yourself, seek out professional instruction. Drawing from the holster and firing smoothly, there's that skill. Ask about the target type, whether it's silhouette, bullseye, or other. They can put their other in. And then it gives you first, second, and third attempts from 3 meters and 5 meters, pass or fail. Does it all over again for a secondary firearm for number 2. And then it asks for the administrator information, their first name, last name, where they can be contacted up, their phone numbers or PAL, where the location was that they did the course. And there's an area for any additional comments if necessary.
Yep.
Okay. Obviously, it's an offense under Section 106 of the Firearms Act to knowingly make false or misleading statements, either orally or in writing. So you put date and sign that. And then the CFO will take a look and they'll say pass or fail on there.
Yep, absolutely.
Anything I missed on there?
No, and to be honest, like when you go through the authorization questionnaire, really use common sense. I mean, obviously we just covered, the shooting positions. You're doing it from a standing as well. For the trapping, it's all standing. But when they are looking at the answers that you're going to provide, one of the things that I really learned was you want to give detail that gives a reassurance to someone, because you don't know who the civil servant is who's going to be taking on your paperwork. So there's a way of answering your questions that cover your basis, but you also are not limiting. I mean, I'm a trapper up in northern British Columbia, and one of the questions was, where will you be trapping? And that's something that I think when I bounced ideas off of you, he said, well, you might. He questioned me, and Travis said, are you going to trap there for the rest of your life? Or you could go trapping down in southern BC if you get permission. So learning how to frame the answers of, I will be trapping in accordance with the law in the province of British Columbia. This is what I have now, but you're also leaving it open for opportunity.
This is probably one of the areas where you and I, and most people, we spend the most amount of time going through, because there's a delicate balance, and part of that is knowing the individual that you're dealing with, what they're looking for, what their objectives are, where they're coming from. Because I've had a firearms officer come up and say, look, I'm just, if there's any reason that you come up with, that you say that would preclude you from owning this, we'll jump on that right away. So you have to be very careful. This isn't a fair and frank sort of disclosure of information process. This isn't an open dialogue if it's framed in such a way where you're already going to be on your back foot saying, well, if I say this wrong, you're just going to... And so this is where I find most people have the trepidation. And this is consequently where most people will have themselves denied.
Yes, absolutely. And in a lot of the people that have reached out and said, I've done the test, I shot very well, I have good trigger control, I had good holstering control, I don't understand why I was denied. And I think a lot of it, like you said, comes down to the questions and how they answered them.
Right.
And it's up to the discretion of that civil servant to have a follow-up conversation.
I would advise people to answer just the question and don't expand on it. If they want expansion on that question, you can always expand afterwards, but answer that question as clearly and concisely as possible, knowing full well that maybe you just got somebody who's having a bad day. Maybe you got somebody who's saying, I'm going to look for reasons not to issue this one, in which case the more information you provide, the more reasons the issuing body will have to deny it. So don't lie, obviously, number one, but it doesn't mean you have to go on and tell a whole life story as you go through as well. Answer it as quickly and easily, concisely as possible, and a follow-up conversation might happen.
Absolutely.
In my case, I remember on one of them going through, and I was getting a wilderness carry for free mining, and I do that all throughout British Columbia. And the firearms officer came running out one time when I was picking up stuff for work, and he's like, "Oh, I just wanted to talk to you about a couple of things," and just casually throwing a few questions out. And I realized really quickly that I was being interviewed informally for this, as opposed to through the formal process that I should have been. And I talked to the guy, and I said, "Hold on a second. Are you trying to find reasons to not issue?" He's like, "Oh, well, I'm not." It's not that I'm trying to find it. We just don't want to issue to anybody and everybody. And it was his words. We don't want everybody running around with handguns on their hip thinking it's cool. I said, this is a life-saving thing. This is to do with life. Mm-hmm. Like, that should be your only concern. Mm-hmm. Do they make the requirement? Yes or no? If so, go. But I get it. And he says, well, we had a lot of people who just apply and they don't really meet the requirements. Again, that shouldn't take trickery. That shouldn't take running out to have... Well, what are you carrying right now? Like when you go out, what do you use? I physically can't take anything right now, right? Mm-hmm. I need the handgun. My hands are loaded with everything else. It's not like I'm going to have a rifle or shotgun with me. There's going out there and trapping. Holy crow, you're like, I don't understand how anybody could have a rifle or a shotgun and still carry all of this equipment with all their stuff bundled up. Mm-hmm. Okay, so questions. Please provide your valid trapping license number, fur management license, or equivalent. So that's an easy question to answer. Please provide your valid trap line number or registered fur management area number or equivalent and corresponding geographical areas. So for that one, how did you answer it?
So I put down the trap line that I was leasing, and the corresponding geographical areas, I ended up having a follow-up conversation with because I had said, I'll be trapping in British Columbia, and that was too vague. But in a follow-up conversation that I had with the CFO, I said, this is the registered trap line that I am leasing. I also have permission, and that's what trapping has, is you have the permission, written permission from the areas so that you are actually legally, lawfully allowed to carry because you're still in the act of trapping. Mm-hmm. That's one of the gray areas, is you have to say within British Columbia where you have authorization to trap.
Right.
You have to put that. Otherwise, if you just put down trap line such and such and such, in the special comment side of your permit, it will say only authorized to carry on such and such place.
Right. And this is all a process of limiting yourself. Now, why would you limit yourself when your license allows you to work throughout remote wilderness areas, on private property, throughout BC, on other trap lines, assisting other people? Your license allows for this. Yes. Why would you limit yourself, anybody listening, to say, well, I've only got this one right now, so that's the only area I can have it. And that's what people should have in the back of their head as they're answering all of these questions.
Absolutely.
Explain why you feel you need to use a handgun or restricted rifle to dispatch trapped animals rather than any other tool available. Mm-hmm.
And the basic thing is it comes down to it's a lawful and it's a compact tool and it's effective for dispatching.
100% it's effective.
Yeah. So.
Plus,
the big thing is it's compact.
It's the easiest one to carry.
Exactly. It's on your holster. It's on your hip.
Right. And if you have bycatch that you weren't expecting, just because you're catching one thing doesn't necessarily mean that's the thing you're going to get.
Well, and most time when you're walking in on a set, you're carrying tools hoping that you caught your intended catch because they're not right off the snow machine. Mm-hmm. So, you're going in and your hands are already encumbered. Or you're having to crawl into a place to check a set. So, the biggest thing is that it is on your person without having to physically hold it in your hands.
Right. Please provide the dates you plan to be harvesting the trap lines listed above. You said?
I honestly said I will be harvesting in accordance with the law and seasons within the trapping seasons and subject to based on the regulations and the options for trapping outside the season for nuisance animals.
Yes.
So the act of trapping is a year-round activity. As a licensed trapper, I can be contracted.
And I think mine was a little more vague. I think I said the dates every day, right? And I just so better answer, yes. Yep. But when systemizing things a long time ago, I took things real small, and then that requires follow-up conversations, and we'll talk about what that would look like afterwards. But why would I find myself illegal if I say, "Oh, I'm going to be working Monday through Friday, so all of a sudden I got to check a trap line on a Saturday, but I'm in contravention of the law now. Why would I do that to myself?
Well, and you're setting yourself up for failure, right? You're already going through such a process. You need to set yourself up for legal success, is what it is.
Explain how you would safely and securely transport your firearm to the location on your trap line. I think you've made it sound nicer than what I said.
Go ahead with your answer, Travis.
Mine was in accordance with the laws.
So I did it in accordance with the law with restricted firearm. On my follow-up interview, they want to know, and they did come through. They said, there are a bunch of questions that we have to go through. You say in accordance with the law, I need to know that you understand it. So the CFO I worked with, he just basically said, please explain to me what that is. And so when you're going to and from, you have to have it in a locked opaque case, but you also have to have the trigger guard locked.
Yep.
And, your ammunition stored in a separate spot.
Yep.
And the biggest thing too is, people are traveling great distances. So with your ATC, you can travel, it grants you permission to travel to and from your trap line. Obviously, I'm in a special scenario because my trap line is not far from my house. So, I still have all my paperwork that I travel with, but I keep it in my opaque case so that it's there, it's handy, and I have everything going to and from, whether it's a 10-minute drive or a 2-hour drive.
And essentially, you just said in accordance with the laws, but you articulated that you know what those laws are.
Exactly. And they will ask you that. So you can say in accordance with the law, but you better know the answer when you do your follow-up phone call.
100%. And I think anyone with a firearm should know that one.
They should, but I tell you, what was funny is that's where they say a lot of people fail is when they do the follow-up phone call. If people do a small answer, but then they can't come back and actually articulate what the law is, obviously it's an automatic fail.
But my question would be why? Why would that make it an automatic fail?
If people don't understand where the law is and they're applying for a transportation, I can see from an officer's standpoint, if I say, Travis, do you know what it means to travel? And you say, yep. And it's like, okay, well then what is it? And you balk and go, well, locked, of course. As from, when you look at the devil's advocate, it's like, okay, so is this person going to travel with an unlocked firearm to and from the range and put my job at risk? So from their standpoint, I think it is good to put vague, lawful answers. But by God, you better be ready to answer them with a good articulate.
And see, but you're looking at that from a very logical standpoint. And the way that I look at it is, the way that I look at it is, okay, as a regulatory body, if the person doesn't know how to transport it, why don't we just put that, on their conditions, make sure that we know, let's have a conversation.
Perfect.
How do you do it? Oh, I'll just have it unloaded. No, you need to have it in an opaque locked box. Cannot be easily broken into. It's got to be separate from the ammunition. It's going to have a secure locking device on that firearm. Do you understand that? Yes. If you don't transport it like that,
you're in breach.
There's issues, right?
Yeah.
And as opposed to, you got that one wrong, you're gone. I think that's where a lot of people's trepidation comes in because they feel. And sometimes it's like this. I'll be honest. Sometimes there is a gotcha game process to it. Not always. Sometimes you get switched on firearms officers, and they're like, we want to make sure you're safe. We want to make sure you're good, right? Sometimes you get people who don't quite understand, and maybe they're working under that.
Yep.
You've got to deny everybody.
Absolutely.
Same thing goes for how would you safely carry the firearm while you're working on your trap line.
Yeah, you're wearing it on your safety. You're wearing it, on an approved holster that meets the requirements with retention. Yeah,
and that's what my answer is.
Yeah. They will try and catch you up and say, oh, so is that a cross draw? It's like, no, it's on your hip. So, it depends on who your interviewer is.
There's nothing in the law that says you can't use a cross draw. And you can have a cross draw on your hip too.
I think it just said that in the part of the form.
Form, not law.
Oh.
Right?
There you go.
Not legislation, not regulation.
There you go.
But definitely did say it in the form.
Allegedly.
Explain how you safely and securely store the handgun while not carrying it on your trap line.
All right. So I actually went with an answer that I think covered all bases, which was my handgun was stored within the outline requirements as set out by the federal law for restricted firearms here in Canada.
Beautiful. And did he say, oh, what are those?
Absolutely.
And then you explained.
And then I explained to him. So.
Okay. And then there's an offense if you give any bad information. So that is that one.
Yes.
So there's the written questionnaire, and then there's the follow-up kind of verbal questionnaire that may or may not happen. And it's my experience, it always happens.
Absolutely.
Way years ago, didn't. Now always happens. And I remember a firearms officer, Travis, I want to have a verbal conversation with you. Right? And when can you come in? We got to go through this. And I'm like, well, I'm trying so hard to document everything. Just give me your questions in an email. I'll respond to it. Then I've got this paper trail. And I told him that. I said, look, each and every time I apply, it's going to be like a new application. Yeah, I get that, but we've got a framework we can work with. And I'm working with other people. If they meet that framework, then good to go, right? So no, we have to do this verbally. And okay, my back of my hair stand up a little bit when those are my responses. And I said, okay. He says, well, it's a dynamic thing. You might say something, and then I have to say this, and it might grow. I have no idea what my questions could be. I said, gotcha. Okay, no problem. So finally, I said, I got you on the phone now. What are your questions? Oh, okay. Well, I guess question number 1, he goes through, and it's like, okay, sounds perfect. Just writing it down, just letting you know I'm writing down this question. Let me think on that. I'll get back to you. I'll send you an email. Yes? Okay. What's question 2? And we did this for each and every one of his questions. I wrote them down word for word, and then I responded, and I put it in the email. I said, I want to template this. Like, you can't make this. Yeah, I'm being a pain in the ass. I get it. But it templated that process, and it's allowed a lot of other people who are eligible to be able to go through this process in a more streamlined fashion. Yes.
I think that's one of the things that, at the end of the day, when you're going through this process, I mean, there's no smoke and mirrors. You are either going to get approved or you're not. And so much of it will come down to, obviously, in preparedness. So wrapping up this ATC for the trapping side, I mean, you've got your 5491E or whatever the form was. How would you submit that? Would you submit that application first as well, or would you submit a package? Because I think that's what people are going to want to know. Okay, so I've done my studying. I've gone to the range. I either do or I don't have a pistol. So the best advice for someone moving forward is there's 3 different applications that we have to send in. One's the POP, proof of proficiency.
Yep.
One is the questionnaire. Yep. And one is the 5491. I'm going to misquote the number on it, but it'll be in the show notes.
Yeah, 5491E.
Yep, 5491E. So there's those 3 different parts that you have to send in. Would you encourage people to send them all in at once?
I would. Issue is getting those questions. The 5491E is available online. You can grab that, download it, put it through. But the questionnaire sheet, usually what happens is they do this first.
Yes.
Then they get the whole questionnaire sheet and everything else.
That's how it happened for me.
For everyone, because they don't make this publicly available. All those questions that we just said, now you know them, right?
Yeah.
Those distances you have to shoot, the requirements, those, I think, and we can look for it, I think... some versions of the form had it. This one doesn't. I'm just looking now. The new one doesn't.
Yeah, and that was the biggest thing, is that until I actually got the form, I had done some research, so I had a pretty rough idea of what distances I had to shoot and what proficiency I had to, obviously maintain. But that was the hardest part, is that until you submit your 5491E, you don't get your questionnaire.
Right.
And you don't get the distances. So...
Now
in essence, I didn't do it wrong.
Right.
I did send in my 5491E. I finally got a response back. They said, "Oh, you haven't done your application." It's like, where is the application? I would love to attain this so that way I can move forward on the process.
And just to be crystal clear, this is the happy path because they know this.
Yeah.
There are other proof of proficiencies that you can do. This isn't the only proof of proficiency, right? And there's a lot of different schools of thoughts on a proof of proficiency and how that works. Training at the Speed of Life is a neat book if people want to learn about RBS, reality-based training systems, RBT, whatever that is. Some talking about police training and the argument in some states for a 1-round qualification course and knowing the being able to articulate the laws and the know-how and all this is more important. And there's a lot of different thoughts. Just because you can shoot a qualification course doesn't mean you're going to be good with your gun.
Yes.
Right? And just because you do poorly on a qualification course doesn't mean you'll do poorly with a firearm in a situation you might need to. But it's a really nice tool for agencies to be able to pass or deny, to show that they've done their due diligence. And so this is the happy path route. It's not the only route. It just depends on how much a person wants to be obstinate and fight.
Yep, absolutely.
Protection of life in remote wilderness areas. So this is the one where I think more people will be doing. Again, same information about the administration. It's someone who's got a PAL for restricted firearms at the time of the administration, who is a range safety officer or a member of the approved shooting range executive, or is an instructor for a recognized firearms course or discipline. Like, what is that? What's a recognized firearms course or discipline? Right? By what country and what? I think it's wide open. Like you said before, everyone's a range officer.
Yeah.
Firearm used during the POP must be the same firearm the applicant intends to use for wilderness carry. Same comments from before. Applicant can only apply for a maximum of 2. To be listed on their ATC, and a POP must be completed for each firearm. And the last one there was the minimum caliber accepted for wilderness protection is .357 Magnum. Again, that's what they write on this policy form. I've seen them issued for 40 cal. I've seen them issued for 9mm. And when you're looking at this whole thing, it's for the protection of life in remote wilderness areas. And you read through the Act. Let me just pull up the exact word, because I think it's an important piece of the puzzle. Because I was asked before, what predatory animals do you expect to see in your area when looking for a lower caliber than .357, because everyone said, oh, it has to be .357 or higher. Says who? Based on what? And what's bullet penetration looking like? And what kind of ammunition are we using? And the Act says wild animals. Protection of the life of that individual or other individuals from wild animals. It doesn't say predatory animals. A wild animal, I mean, there's a lot of different things that you might have to protect yourself from.
Oh, absolutely. I don't know if anyone's ever come between a cow and calf moose, or had them, have had a foul catching. You obviously you do your best to not catch them.
Yes.
But accidents happen.
Yeah.
And there's a reason they chase off grizzly bears. Let me tell you, you do not want to get in a boxing match.
No. Obviously, the heavier rounds, the faster the projectile goes, the bigger the projectile is. You start stacking things in your favor if you have a poor shot placement, right? Things are going to...
The inertia, the bullet inertia, and how it's actually impacting. And
right.
There's a lot to it.
So things will die if you interrupt their central nervous system. That's your instant off switch. Or if you interrupt their cardiovascular system, stopping the oxygen going to the brain, introducing hypovolemic shock through massive cardiopulmonary decompression, right? And there's 2 ways that we do the first one. Central nervous system is going to be brain, spinal cord, shot placement, right? Number 2 could be lots of holes in it, right? So
in a very platonic term, yes, lots of holes.
Lots of holes, right? Causing it to bleed out more and more. Hopefully those holes are in good places, lungs, heart, vital areas, all the rest. But when we start looking at the firearm being issued, it used to be you have to use a revolver, and it has to be .357 at least. And I said, there's a case for a handgun, a semi-automatic, because more rounds means more holes. Maybe you're in a high-stress situation, and you're trying to dump as many as you can quickly. There's a case to be made for lighter recoiling, because shot placement is massive.
Yes.
So this is not etched in concrete. It's not etched in stone.
That's correct.
But it's a happy path. Ammo. A type of ammo used during the POP has to have similar muzzle velocity, caliber, and bullet weight as the ammunition they intend to use. Fair enough. At least they're not saying the same ammunition anymore. Holsters, all the same sort of information. Covers a trigger. Has a holster retention device, must be used during the POP. What they mean by that is when you put the firearm back in the holster, you apply the retention device. You can't just leave it open. I've seen so many people want to, I can get it out faster if there's a time.
If they just have it sitting on top.
Yeah. So you gotta actually use it. Shoulder and cross draw holsters are not permitted, it says. Again, steel targets are not permitted. The assessment, now we're looking at applicant must shoot in both standing and kneeling positions for each distance, 5, 10, and 15 meters. And now we've got a time frame on it.
Yes.
For each firing position at each distance, the applicant must discharge 6 rounds unsupported within 20 seconds in one continuous motion. 6 rounds in 20 seconds is a world of time. So for people who are concerned quite often it's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then you're looking at the watch as it's counting down. Like you count down 20 seconds, start learning how to use that time, and make sure you're good sight picture, proper trigger press.
Nice squeeze.
Yeah, exactly.
Follow through.
World of a difference.
Absolutely. Good grip. You're not pulling. You're not flinching. And we will say, too, you're not shooting at a steel target. It does still give you, like, whether it's a silhouette or a bullseye or other, but it does have to be within a 9-inch diameter.
Right.
So obviously, because you're going from those different standards of your 5, 10, and 15, obviously you have a wider diameter. But I mean, you're moving. And I think that was one thing in the test is that you go from standing to kneeling, unholster, make your shot. So there's a lot of communication. There's a lot of moving parts on this set. So I would definitely encourage people, you know, when you're going down range and you're shooting this as a target practice, articulate to the people that you're working with, because it just makes you a better marksman. It also makes you very cognizant, because for a safety mind, if I'm going to test you and I don't know you, I'm going to feel more comfortable going, okay, this person's just said, all right, we're going to go times on. I'm going to go from my hands to holster, but I'm going to be taking it out. I like to have someone articulate to me so I can anticipate, because it also shows me that they have confidence. And that was one thing that was passed down to me when I did my test, is that the person who tested me said they admired that I had confidence, that I was able to articulate, because we are going to a live range.
I like that. And it also makes sure that if the examiner doesn't see you doing something.
Yes, because they're standing on one side and my holster's on the other.
So I heard that sequence, you said going from standing to kneeling, then unholstering. So you unholster from a kneeling position. Typically, we'd tell people to unholster from a standing position, just so they're not, if they're, depending on what knee they're on, it's not pointing at their leg as they go through. I may have heard that wrong. But and then, of course, 20 seconds here. Scoring, the administrator must indicate a total number of hits for each of the shooting positions and distance. A hit is awarded when a round lands on the designated scoring area of the target. And like you said, the designated scoring area is defined as being a circle with a radius of 9 inches or 23 centimeters. And they used to actually say pie plate. Use a pie plate, right? The applicant must achieve 15 hits for every 18 rounds fired. So again, from each shooting position, that's 83%. If an applicant fails to achieve the minimum pass mark, the applicant must be retested for the failed shooting position at all 3 distances. So, same thing again.
And I think that would be something, Travis, we just talked about is, you know, when I went down to a kneeling position, I chose to keep mine holstered, because then I wasn't moving. And maybe that's wrong. There was no dissertation on whether you had to unholster and then go kneeling.
There is no right and wrong, really, as long as you're doing it safely.
Yes.
There is the common school of thought, how everyone's like, this is how I was taught, so this is how it's got to be done, right? So there will be people who listen to this and say, no, that's wrong because it's not safe. And that's the only reason I interjected that one part. But realistically, you should be able to unholster prone, supine, kneeling, sitting, right? And know how to do this. It's not always going to be a perfect situation. Maybe you're knocked on your arse and you got to get this gun out and work from there, right? But for most people, they know training, they know things in a certain way. I don't know. My ADHD mind seems to paint outside the box a lot.
Absolutely. And I think for myself, because my examiner was standing on my left side, I'm obviously as a right holster. I think when I went down, I was doing it in the snow after a blizzard, and I just said, because it was slippery as well.
Yeah.
So I think that's where I made the choice where it's like, I'm going to do my move action and then go unholstered, because that way, in my mind's eye, it was the safest scenario, because you can slip as you go to kneeling in the snow. So. Caution and diligence.
Caution and diligence. It says an applicant can only attempt a maximum of 2 retests for each shooting distance. If an applicant fails to achieve the minimum pass mark after 3 attempts for any distance, the applicant cannot attempt to do the POP assessment unless 30 days have passed. Again, exceptions I've seen have been made. The administrator must submit all results, same as before. You know, some people, and we see it time and again, oh, I want to have my proof of proficiency. They'll phone up our office. Yeah, not a problem, right? So we're going to have to rent a range, right? We're going to have to make sure, obviously, as a company, we've got insurance. Sending you out with an instructor examiner. They're at a high caliber, at a high level. They need to be paid when they're out there. This is work, right? Our ranges aren't in our backyard, so there's travel there and back, and then there's processing. Like, it becomes costly endeavor unless somebody happens to have a friend who's putting them through, and there's no money exchanged. Then you don't have to worry about, because then you can still fall underneath the range's insurance. The second people start doing this as a bit of a business, it gets costly to do it right. So I would be wary of dealing with individuals who are doing this as a business, who are willing to cut corners and costs. They either A, do it at no charge as a part of their club and what they do, or have some sort of something figured out. I don't know if there's you donate to the range or whatever it is. But you start looking for businesses that offer this one. Be prepared to spend some money to get out there. I think, and then it says shooting cold. There's nothing in here that talks about shooting cold. But some people will make you do that. Again, all the same information, make, model, caliber, all the rest. First attempt, second attempt, third attempt, 5, 10, and 15 meters, pass or fail. Prepared firearm and magazine, speed loader safely, pass or fail. Firearm holstered safely and prepare for the pop, pass or fail. Drawing for the holster and firing smoothly, pass or fail. And it gives the types of targets that are used. Okay. Anything we should add on that?
No, I think the biggest thing is just practice.
Yeah.
You know, I think that's...
Were you pretty nervous?
I'm not going to lie. Yes, I was. Because I wanted to do well.
Oh, totally.
I wanted to do well, and I'm not going to lie, it was a blistering, colding day. It had been a blizzard. I had to cut spruce boughs to get up this one part of our... literally with my axe so that my truck could get in, and then I was like, oh my gosh, like, this is not setting me up for success here. You know, and it was December. I wanted to be on the trap line.
Right.
Like, I had a lot of pressure, but at the same time, I'm very fortunate enough that I've had an opportunity to train with some very highly decorated soldiers, ex-military, ex-special agents, you know, through the Sig Sauer and through the instructors that they have there at the academy. So I remember the process and looking with both eyes, and when I got to the range, it's almost like yoga minus the Lululemons, where you have to just get into the zone. And especially for someone that has very little experience shooting pistols, except for when I would go to the States, and when I finally got mine, and I spent a lot of time with green thumbs when I go to the States, and they jokingly bring extra powder, but it's the Canadian way, you know.
Sure.
But my biggest advice is, if you're going to be nervous, shoot as much as you can, as often as you can.
Yes, and you know, everyone talks about shooting is 90% mental, 10% physical, and they'll say that for a lot of sports. And I find shooting, you got that instantaneous feedback loop where if I did something poorly, I see it on the target right away. Work on that 90%.
Dry fire,
visualize.
Yes. Especially for Canada.
Helps
you
a
know,
lot.
dry fire, ammo's expensive. And that's one thing. I've done a lot of simulations with my friends at SIG when we do the guide training. You know, you'll have a partner and you'll get handed your firearm. You present it. It might have a live round, it might not. And you find your flinches, you find everything.
Yes.
And that's at home. I mean, you can practice with your restricted firearm at home, empty, make sure, proof it's safe. You can take your empty magazine, and you don't even have to put your magazine in. You can rack it, and you practice your trigger control. And Trevor Thompson, he's a friend of mine. He gave me some really positive advice. Practice how you shoot. And presentation is everything. Make it muscle memory.
Yep.
And that's one thing that as soon as I started practicing, as much as I was nervous and cold and we were sitting out in the snowbank on the day that I did my test, I got into the zone because it was familiar. And as soon as you go to a place of familiarity when you're nervous, the world calms down and you shoot well.
I love that advice. And that ball and dummy is what they call it, whether you have a live round or a dud, and you can sure see if you're flinching.
Oh man, I'll tell you what. You want to see a Canadian? And I was like, Yosemite, woo! And I was like, a couple of my American friends, they laugh, but
in the drawing, I mean, if you're getting ready for your shift, there's no reason if going over to the nothing and load up. Nothing that says you can't draw and holster 10 times in the morning, unload at the end of the day, draw and holster 10 times. Man, that adds up. You got to, you got.
And the firearms these days are so forgiving. Because I asked, I was like, will this wreck my firing pin? Absolutely not. Mm-hmm. And I asked, I was like, how often do I have to clean my gun? And some of the gentlemen that train and have worked extensively, they're like, they're forgiving. Yeah. I've drug it through hell.
Yeah.
Obviously, if it gets dirty, you clean it. But that's one thing. Do not be afraid to dry fire and do that practice, because that practice perfect. It's the way to do it.
Perfect practice makes perfect.
That's right.
So, questions. What is your profession or occupation as it relates to this application? Describe your work duties. And so, as a free miner, I'm working in remote wilderness areas as a free miner. And I just, leave it really wide and open. What'd you say?
Well, honestly, so I did it as a trapper for the wilderness side of it.
Okay.
Because that's what I thought my prerogative was. And I wanted to just get my first application in. So I said, I work in a remote setting. I will be active and not limited to carrying and transporting game, large amounts of traps, and related supplies and tools to perform my occupation, as well as navigating changing terrain and modes of transportation. Mm-hmm. So that answer is the meat and potatoes of everything. I'm not saying I'm just going to use an SUV. In the summer, I might be using my horses to look for squirrel middens because I'm still trying to learn my area.
Yeah.
You don't want to limit yourself. So that's why when you say all forms of transportation, it's all encompassing. The crazy part is, Travis, that I want to touch on this as we go through this application is when you get your wilderness ATC, and this is a question I actually had for Travis coming up to this event, is when you have your wilderness ATC, I'm obviously a registered trapper.
Yep.
I work on a very remote cattle ranch that has all sorts of things with teeth and animals that, are prey. And I work as a guide. Mm-hmm. So does a person answer all of those things? Because under the special qualifications on your actual license and permit, can you be qualified for all of those different jurisdictions, or is it only for one?
As long as you are working in a remote wilderness area, you can be qualified on that one.
There you go.
So that leaves it there. I've seen reluctance to issue it for certain professions or other professions, but it comes down to, what did the law say? Occupation or profession? Well, you are working on that. Mm-hmm. Lawful possession, profession, or occupation. Yeah. Now, if you get issued for one, and you're like, now I want to carry it for the other, that I would say would find you offside. Mm-hmm. You get issued for one and you say, I'm also working on these other areas, that keeps you on side. Mm-hmm. Because if it was issued for a certain lawful occupation or profession, like for example, I'm an armed guard and I want to go outside now and in a wilderness area, it doesn't translate over. Mm-hmm. But you can be certified in all these different areas that you do work.
Mm-hmm. We'll touch on that one later.
Okay.
That was a big question from the audience is, I do X, Y, and Z. These are all year-round activities.
Yeah.
How can I go about doing this?
You just put it down what your lawful profession or occupation is.
Yeah, on your application. Yeah. What if you've done your application and submitted it already, like myself?
You can have it updated. You can have that updated in like 24 hours.
All right, here we go.
So there might be, now keep in mind, every application is based as brand new, right? Mm-hmm. When you go through a renewal.
So I would have to do the entire application.
You'd fill it out again with the new information. This is where dealing with that idea that each one is done brand new, that's policy, right?
Okay.
This is where we're dealing with people again. So this is, I'm working, I want to make sure that I'm on the right side, make sure I have it listed on my ATC. Now I'm guiding, now I'm doing this. What'll it come back? Well, you're guiding. Do you have a rifle with you? If you have a rifle with you, why don't you just use that? Mm-hmm. Right? Do I have a rifle with me all the time? Right? Mm-hmm. Would be the I need something that's going to be with me at all times. Yes, Absolutely. I've got a rifle, but there's times it's going to be in the scabbard, it's going to be on the horse. There's going to be times I'm with somebody else. Oh, does that somebody else have a firearm? What do you need the handgun for? Right? So now I've got to depend on that somebody else to protect my life. I'm the one who's in charge of their life, right? This is my profession, right? So I'm the one who's been paid to take them and myself home safely at the end of it. So these are some of the questions that I could anticipate based on what I've heard in the past. Oh, you're going out right now. What do you use? Right? That was the one that stuck with me. I am physically not able to carry anything else at the time, right? Oh, you're carrying bear spray? You doing other things? Yes, but I'd like to have the handgun because the efficacy of bear spray is, and we can get into that whole thing as well.
Yeah.
So yes, it can encompass more things. No, I would not have it issued under one thing and use it for something else and expect for people to not.
Yes. That's the biggest thing, is looking at your specifications.
Yes.
And so as a person goes through these questions, just for the people who had questions about it in the audience, that was a big one.
Yeah.
Is if I'm permitted for one, how do I, 1, reapply? 2, do I have to do another whole questionnaire? Or 3, can I have it all encompassing if I'm submitting this for the first time?
So what I've actually seen happen is I am also doing this. I am following all of the exact same protocol as before. The only addition is this. Can I have it updated? And I've seen that. Is that going to allegedly? Is that because the difficult part is these people are nice people. A lot of them are decent people, and you don't want to throw them under the bus when they're doing you a favor, right? You feel good because, oh, they're really nice. They're looking out for me, but were they doing me a favor? Like, really, just do the job. This is to protect my life, and this is something that I'm properly qualified and trained for. Just add it on. But this relationship, this whole Stockholm syndrome thing kind of falls into place. And that's where I'm hoping this podcast will help normalize it.
Absolutely. And if anything, the amount of guides that I know that have had interactions with predators that have meant them harm. Your gun's leaning against here while you're gutting a moose. Right. Your pistol is on your hip.
That's right.
And there's been a lot of instances, and some unfortunately very fatal, that, have cost people their lives, or they've been maimed to the point where they don't partake in certain activities anymore because of fear that's been installed. And that's one thing, is that I hope that this would help be a skill set to help them walk through an application, so that way they're using them in the best case scenario. Obviously, you minimize it, but we just want everyone to be safe in the backcountry.
Yes. Define the specific remote geographical area where you wish to carry a handgun while working. And what did I put? And I'm looking back because my form was a little bit different. They had a little bit different questions. Anyways, throughout BC, on Crown land and remote wilderness areas is what I put.
Absolutely. And for trapping, because I did go after my wilderness to carry as a trapping, outside of dispatch, I just said with landowner permission.
Right.
So that's a big one, is that you have to have that written down in there.
Yes.
So.
Okay. On what dates do you anticipate being required to work in that area? Every day.
Every day. It's a year-round occupation.
Explain why you feel you need to carry a handgun in relation to your profession or your occupation, as opposed to a more effective methods of protection for predatory animals. Example, spray, rifle, shotgun. I like how they say spray is more effective than a handgun. Rifle and shotgun is more effective. Well, what's going to be effective is the thing that you have with you at the time.
Absolutely.
That's going to be effective. And the handgun is always going to be with you. It's going to be worn with you. I don't disagree that a rifle or a shotgun with slugs will do greater penetration, more kinetic energy, can do greater damage. But it's like you were saying, you don't have your rifle in your hand while you're gutting.
It's fast reaction times as well. I mean, by the time you actively go pull up your long rifle, I mean, that takes seconds. Sometimes the act of trying to find and locate your rifle, it's not on your person. Practice makes perfect.
And the idea that spray is going to be more effective.
It has to be effective at very close distances.
Right. And it also has to be, I haven't seen bear spray being tested against predatory, aggressive animals. These are just animals that are passively acquiescing, walking on through. You give it a squirt. It's like, I don't like this. I'm going to leave. They're the same ones I would leave if you smacked it on the butt with a broom, right?
Exactly. When they're in full predator mode and they're coming in, they're engaged to do harm.
Right.
A mist cloud of pepper is not going to do a
No,
whole lot.
that's where central nervous system or
Yes.
lack of oxygen,
Yes.
that comes into play. So I don't discount pepper spray. Pepper spray is a great tool. It's
in
just,
the right scenario.
it's just another tool that can be used, but it's not a panacea. It's not the be-all, end-all.
Yes. But that's the thing, too, is that when you come back to it, is that handguns are the most effective tool.
They
You
are.
know, in a wide variety, there is a method of protection. And the biggest thing is that your hands are not encumbered by having to carry your weapon.
Right.
When you're in a wilderness scenario, whether you're free mining, whether you're a forester, whether you're a guide tying up a horse, caring for your client, you know, you're a trapper carrying in your sets, your hands are always full. And a back sling for a rifle isn't conducive or quick acting as far as safe. You'd have to drop everything, try and sling your rifle around. You can drop what you have in your hands and your holster is right there.
And it's not always practical either.
No.
You're going through brush and scrub, and you got this rifle on your back that's dragging on everything.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the biggest thing too that I know when I talk to the CFO is that a lot of times you're putting yourself in close call situations. So, and that's even close as far as proximity. You might not have the room to swing a rifle around because if you and I are standing there and our rifle's between us, I mean, good practice is I'm not going to swing the rifle in front of you while I'm loading it to protect us. You know, like in best case scenario, like you have a lot more muzzle control with a smaller object where I can spin my person around and present the firearm. So.
But and as you're talking there, I'm reading as well, protect from predatory animals. Nowhere in the regulations does it say predatory animals. It says wild animals again, right? So it's, I get where people's heads are. And quite often people are like, well, it's got to be good for a bear. You need it for a bear. And that's the only thing that kind of sits in a lot of people's minds and the issuing body's mind. But they're, wolves. Okay, they're a predatory animal. Calf cow, right? Like you were saying, there's
or an animal that's been maimed by a predator, and you end up walking into them. I mean, they're in defense.
Yeah. So it's not necessarily predatory animals that you're carrying it for.
Yeah.
The regulations say wild animals.
Absolutely.
While working in this remote area, how many people will work in the immediate area with you, within sight or within verbal communication distance? So I say typically 0. That's what I wrote. What'd you write?
I wrote typically 0.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of times you're working alone or you're in one or two small people groups and there's a lot of communication that happens. Again, I said that while you're working, I am in the act of working. Chainsaws, tools, horses, equipment, supplies. My hands are busy. And that's, again, where it comes back to is that your hands are busy and otherwise engaged.
Yes.
You are not actively carrying a defense mechanism.
Right.
So.
Are you registered with British Columbia, WorkSafe BC, or Yukon Workers' Compensation Health and Safety Board in the aforementioned profession or occupation? Identify how. I said, nope.
Yes, I honestly, those questions there, I said not applicable.
Yeah, that's what I put in. It's not applicable.
Because the biggest thing is sometimes you're working underneath a guide outfitter, especially if you get certified to carry under a guide outfitter. I mean, they've signed off on it and they have their own insurance through their own agencies.
Right.
So you've made it aware that you will be carrying, you are legally allowed to carry. So your due diligence is letting them know. And obviously they've signed off on your work permit. So.
If yes, have you or your employer met the obligation under the Regional Workers' Compensation Board legislation by providing you, the worker, with training and instruction on the safe handling use of the firearms? So if that's applicable to the individual, we answer as it is. For me, it was not applicable.
Yeah, it was not applicable as well.
Explain the risk assessment your employer has conducted in relation to safe avoidance of hazardous wildlife in the remote area in which you will be required to work. Attach a copy. So that's different. Explain the risk avoidance your employer has conducted. Well, previously they said that you had conducted.
So the wording has changed a bit.
Mm-hmm.
I know for myself, I said because I am self-employed, I actively solicit, local knowledge before entering into an area. I'll talk to the other stakeholders that are there, especially if there's other industry practices. For example, like where the trap line is, they were logging. I ran into logging trucks and other people on the daily.
Mm-hmm.
So, keeping the communication open. And if there's people like tree planters and stuff like that during the summer, obviously you make yourself known, make yourself aware, right? And that's the biggest thing too, especially if you have predatory animals or you have a cow-calf. For example, there's a part of the trap line I wanted to go look at that's particularly swampy. I wanted to see if there was any aquatic animals in there. There's also a cow and calf moose. I am going to avoid that area at all costs because I don't want to have a confrontation. But another one too for trapping and even for guide outfitting, and depending on what your jurisdiction is, don't be afraid to introduce yourself to your local CO, your conservation officer. If there's a local detachment that frequents the area, it's good to be on speaking terms and first name with all of the other industries and stakeholders.
100%. I wrote down, I obtained recent intel from locals and those working in the area. This may include aerial views, recce reports, reconnaissance reports, stats, and sightings and encounter reports. So it's pretty broad and open, but I mean, if I'm going to go out, I got to do my due diligence. Like you said, talk to people who will be in the area.
Absolutely.
Let's go over here. Next page. Explain what information you have obtained from British Columbia / Yukon conservation officers with regards to predatory animals in remote wilderness area in which you will work. Please provide the names and contact information to all those you consulted. So this is a newer one that they put in.
Okay.
I was never asked this about which conservation officers. Like you, I'm friends with a number of conservation officers, and they are on the hotline go-to that I'll talk to and I'll phone up, right? And get information. But to me, when I read that looks like third-party denial. Essentially, it looks like, well, you were denied because I talked to the conservation officer and I asked them a bunch of questions and they answered no to it. Oh, did Rachel ask you A, B, C, D, right? Did Rachel go and blah, blah, blah? Well, no, they didn't say that, right? Or whatever it might be. To me, it just reads like a way to deny a person's application that brings that level of control away from both the firearms officer and yourself and gives a little bit of a arm's reach. I could be 100% off base and being paranoid as I look at that, but that's how it reads to me because
especially when you're asked to provide names and contact information.
Right. Why?
So you're soliciting someone else. And to me, I didn't feel comfortable doing that.
Right.
So when I answered mine, Travis, I said, part of my strategy will be to communicate with local organizations and government officials as I further familiarize myself with the area.
Yep.
And I'll articulate what I'm finding, and I will also understand that it might be, within a timely manner as well. Different parts of the season. That way, I didn't feel comfortable putting down people's names.
No.
Because I don't know what questions they're going to ask, and they don't know me, and I don't know them.
That's it.
So,
but you will be asking. I mean,
absolutely.
You do your due diligence and find out.
Yep.
But I mean, what info that you're going to ask now is going to have any consequence when you're out there half a year later, right?
Absolutely.
Explain how you would safely carry your handgun while working in this remote area. I say, in accordance with the laws, right? That got a call back for you.
That got a call back for me. It sure did. And it goes down to the same thing as trapping. It has to be holstered on your hip with a level of retention.
Yeah.
So.
And I think in a more recent one, I put down in an approved police issue belt / thigh holster. I took a path at that time, which was, if they're going to look at approving or denying certain types of holsters, why don't I just pick a holster that's already been approved for issue with police agencies? If it's good for them, surely it's good for somebody working in a remote wilderness area. So they've got retention
straps. It has to meet all the requirements.
That's it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And I just so happen to have a whole bunch of them kicking around, so it made life easy.
Absolutely.
It says, explain how you'd safely and securely store your handgun while working in the remote wilderness area. So same as your answer for the other one, I should imagine.
Well, so this is store your gun while working in the remote. So that's the trick question on this one.
Right.
Is that obviously, if you're guiding or you're traveling to and from the field, you have to be in accordance with your ATT, your transportation. And that I read as at night, so I go to the cabin. Is this a gray area where it's like, technically, I'm storing my firearm, my handgun while working in this remote area? So, with myself, I would probably take my opaque case, right, and my 2 locks, transport them in, so that way I have my locking mechanisms if I have to lock them up. Like, to me, this was a question that they could catch you up on if you answered it with too much information.
How did you answer?
I said I would store it in accordance with the federal and provincial legislations.
Yes.
I did say that I would have my transportation, my ATT regulation equipment with me, so that if I had to store it for any period of time, I would be in accordance with the law. I did say that on my phone call, but technically, if you're working in a remote trap line, you're opaque in your truck, in your console, that's out of sight, out of mind if it locks. So, and if you have to leave a restricted firearm, in a vehicle, you have to have it locked, double locked as well.
Yeah,
so
it says it's got to be locked in the trunk if the trunk is available.
Yes.
If no trunk available, it's
console,
got to be locked in the vehicle, out of sight with the vehicle locked, right?
Exactly.
If
you still have to have multiple mechanisms of locking.
Right, but you do raise a good point. Like, what's storage? I mean, like, take it to the silly degree. Well, I'm in a mobile home. Is this transport? Is this storage? Right? I live in a houseboat. Is it transport? Is it storage?
The biggest catch up was while working in this remote area. So for guides, foresters, and everyone else, it's actually staying in a cabin where, as a guide, you have meat hanging outside.
And you're still working.
You're still working.
Just because you're sleeping doesn't mean you can't get woken up in the middle of the night. You're on.
But that's where the due diligence comes in, is obviously there has to be a level of awareness of around camp. It is up to you to make sure that that firearm is in your line of sight on your hip. If it's not on your hip, I would take that as a gray area that it needs to be stored. So that's where, for people that are asking that question, because it did come up in a lot of the online questions, is, say I get approved for it, do I have to take all this stuff with me when I go to the mountains?
Now, of course, I'm on the spot. We don't have cell coverage where we're at.
Yeah.
But I know in non-restricted firearms, there is a section for storage, and they can be stored in contravention of the safe storage laws if it's going to be used relatively soon for predatory animals and the rest. I'm trying to remember if there's something. I don't think it's in there for the restricted or prohibited.
I can see the page online myself. Yes. So maybe we'll put that in the field notes. But that comes down to common sense. Right. Because if you live in a remote area, I mean, obviously you're not storing it unsafely, especially if there's children around or anything like that. But if you have attractants in camp, you're waiting to get a plane out so that you got meat. I mean, that's where it comes down to a due diligence side. And when it comes to restricted firearms, those are questions that be prepared to answer, especially if you're going after your wilderness ATC. And some supplementary information when we get back to service, we'll definitely provide it. But
throw it in there. And what's contravention? Contravention of the laws could be a bunch of things. What I've seen it typically mean is just unloaded.
Yeah.
The typically, like, having it loaded would be in contravention. But typically what I've seen people come down to as an understanding of a contravention would be is the gun's unloaded, but it's ready for use if needed.
Yeah.
Okay. It says, please include proof of firearms and wilderness training that you've completed in the past 5 years, along with any other relevant training. And so people can fill that out, sign it, date it.
And you know what? In that circumstance, the more the better. If you've had wilderness, industrial predator awareness, conflict management,
First aid.
Exactly. If you've got first aid, if you've done any pistol or long rifle training, private instruction, if you're, I'm a registered guide, so I put my registered guide's license down, any information that shows that you are an industry field executive or professional, put it in there.
Did you have questions? Because I know we put some stuff up on the internet. Did you have people ask you questions that we haven't answered?
So the biggest thing that, as we kind of work through this, is that people wanted to know, can I get a firearm if I didn't buy one or I'm still on the waiting list?
Yes.
That was number one question out of the 3 different rounds I did.
Yeah. So from anecdotally, allegedly, all the rest. Yes.
So how can they go about that?
That's a damn good question. So there still will be businesses that have firearms. Not all the businesses got rid of all their firearms, so those are still available. There still will be individuals who have have handguns, because it's not a restricted firearm ban or freeze. It's simply a handgun ban or freeze. That's what they want to call it. I have seen people importing from the States. Businesses have imported from the States. I have heard of individuals doing that for work reasons. I haven't seen that personally, but I have heard that. But there are still provisions of protocol, because they can't deny you the ability to go out there and protect your life.
Absolutely.
This will hopefully all change in 2025.
We're remaining hopeful, ever hopeful. But I think that was some of the other questions came down to, are there training opportunities for first time, for people that might own a handgun? Silvercore, I know, has a lot of great opportunities for learning, whether that's classroom, online. Is there somewhere that they can go to get training to make them a more proficient shooter?
Well, clearly I'm going to plug Silvercore, because
Absolutely.
we do that. But honestly, there's a lot of good places that you can go to. There's a lot of qualified people across the country. Look for positive Google reviews, not people who are given pay-in passes and shuffle them through quickly. Look for the people that I guess those can get positive Google reviews too, but you can read between the lines. And then going into the States as well. I mean, everyone and their dog's got a gun in the States. Marty Hayes' Firearms Academy of Seattle is a good one, close for people who are near the border. The SIG Academy, fantastic training.
Absolutely.
Done lots of work with their counterparts up here, and you've done as well. I've been through at Smyrna, Georgia with Glock, and Springfield, Massachusetts, although I guess they've moved now, Smith & Wesson. But there's lots of... If you're doing the training, getting it from a reputable source would be preferred, but not always practicable, depending on where you live and what's available.
Absolutely. Another big question, especially because you guys do so much with handgun proficiency, revolver versus the pistol with the removable magazine, like myself.
I'd say, what do you have, number one? But
in Canada, what do you have? What do you have?
Right. But number two, I go semi-auto.
Yeah.
And I go semi-auto because, damn, they're robust, right?
They are.
I don't have to, SIG makes amazing stuff, right? And I've got a number of Glocks that I use that have been through hell and back, and they still go bang. I've seen these things work with major components broken on them, and they just keep plugging away. Polymer frame, kind of nice.
One thing I really like, how easy they are to reload.
Sure.
That's one thing. You drop the magazine, you put another in. When you have a revolver, there are cute little ways that you can easily reload. But for safety, I thought I would be a revolver person. That was changed the moment I put a SIG in my hand.
The idea that you're going to be in some protracted sort of thing and shooting and then reloading and then shooting and reloading and going through, typically you're using what you have in the firearm, and hopefully that's going to be it.
Absolutely.
Right?
Worst case Ontario, you want to be able to have another magazine. So
yes. But yeah, the semi-autos do interject a couple other things that you need to know from a training standpoint, right? How you hold it's going to change, how it cycles. Ammunition is going to feed differently. You have to know how to clear some basic stoppages or jams with it, but it's not like you don't have to think about some of these things with a revolver as well. And it's just the lightweight, the robustness, the corrosion resistance, and the added rounds, the extra rounds that you have, because maybe you're out there in the middle of nowhere and you have to use it, and you're coming home and you find you have to use it again, right? Like, worst case scenario, isn't it nice to have more rounds and not enough?
Absolutely. Now, in Canada, we are under certain restriction for magazine capability. Absolutely. But with my 9, I know I have 10. With my 10 millimeter, I have 8.
Right.
And, my 45-70 that I used to carry, I could fit 4 down the barrel. That's it. So it's like, when you looked at the practicality of it too, like you said, more ammunition. Another big question was, is when a person goes after their ATC, and we did touch on it, is there a way to communicate with an officer to find out if they qualify? Because there's a lot of people that say, well, I work remotely, I might be a geologist. Does this work for me? How can people find if they actually meet the criteria? Because when you look at it, if you work remote wilderness, you have to protect your own life.
What's remote wilderness?
Well, it depends for everyone else.
Right. So remote wilderness for you might be different for somebody in the lower mainland, right?
Absolutely.
So what exactly is remote wilderness? So that's the question I'll put out there for people to opine on themselves.
Yeah.
And the other one is, are they working? So it says profession or occupation. Mm-hmm. So it's not just, I'm just working on my roof, right? But if you can tie that into your profession or occupation, like I'm working on the fence, right? Mm-hmm. That's a part of my profession or occupation as it applies to what you're doing. Mm-hmm. The firearms program will ask you to provide you with a letter from your city or municipality saying that you're licensed to work in that area. And I say, I live in Delta, what does at that time the corporation of Delta, now the city of Delta, have to do with my work in remote wilderness areas outside of Delta? Yeah. They said, no, we need to get this. I said, okay, fair enough. So I talked to them and they say, we don't have any authority over these areas, but no, I've got it in writing. It satisfied the firearms program and sent that one forward. Yeah. So I wouldn't advise people to contact the firearms program to ask if they qualify. I don't want a binary yes or no. Mm-hmm. I know that if I'm working in a remote wilderness area, that I qualify.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm just looking through a bunch of the questions here is, I think we covered where do I start for the wilderness permit? And the biggest thing is you can go online in Canada.
Yes.
And that's national.
Yep.
And that's your 5491E.
Yep.
And I would submit that. Obviously, I don't know if you have yours in front of me. I've got mine. You have to have, for that particular form, you have to have your firearms license number. You obviously have to be able to say whether this is a new or a renewal. If you have an employer, there's a certain section for that as well. There are certain circumstances. For mine, there's 2 different sections. Applicant works in remote wilderness. Firearms are required to protect of his or her life or the lives of others from wild animals. They give a few different, and you can check a few of them that apply. Mm-hmm. So, I check the applicant is engaged in the age of trapping in the province and the territory. Knowing what I know now, I could have checked all the boxes because I do all the boxes.
Right. I think your concern, if I recall correctly, was I don't want to delay this even further.
That's correct. That's why we went after trapping.
Right. So, and I need it now, and it's been so long that's taken. And now this, you're right, federal form, provincially applied. Some provinces have got this dialed in and they understand it. Other provinces, you're going to have personalities and obstinate individuals. Sorry, Nova Scotia.
Alberta is nicer and easier.
Right. So, just from my own personal dealings of different firearms officers and different offices, I know that some are going to be an easier road for you, some are going to be a little bit more difficult. Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. And one thing I will say, there's a few questions that came through on Instagram asking, once I've started the process, what's the appropriate time to follow up? So obviously that's personal dependent. I did go after the wilderness trapping side specific to trapping because I was coming into December and November and I wanted to get out there as fast as I could. Obviously I still had months in the making. So now coming into my prep season, I can now carry legally and lawfully. Right. Another thing I'll say is document everything.
Yeah.
When I submitted everything, I put a sticky note, submitted on this time. I gave it a week and a half, 2 weeks the first time, and then I followed up. Concisely, politely, time is of the essence.
So what's an appropriate time to follow up? I don't like entering into something without knowing what that time frame looks like to begin with. Right. I know I need it for this certain time. Yep. That's my time frame between here and now, right? So if I need it next week, I'm following up every day. Right. If I need it tomorrow, I'm following up every hour, right? Mm-hmm. If I need it in 4 months from now, I'll say, I'll call them up and I'll say, what's an appropriate time? When can I expect to have this by? I'm going to be calling and following up on these days or emailing on these days. So I usually try to have that time frame specified so the firearms officer isn't caught off guard. Maybe they got a pile of work that they have to go through and mine's just on the pile, but they look at it and it's low priority stuff and they just think yours is in there. It used to be that they'd give you a purple envelope. Different businesses would get a purple envelope and that they would fast track an application that came in a purple envelope. Then it was, if you write for employment on your paperwork that goes in, you're going to get a fast track. Now, everyone's basically at the same rate, but I've seen things go through in like grease lightning if the firearms officer knows that there's a need for it and there is a time frame that it's...
Because like you said earlier, they're held accountable. If they had, in a way, allegedly, if you have done everything, you have submitted your application and you are trying to use it to protect your life in your occupation, God forbid something happens, I mean, there is a bit of a precedence. You've jumped through all the hoops and you are waiting for an answer.
And that accountability goes both ways, right?
Yep,
so
absolutely.
They're held accountable if they say yes. Why'd you give this person a gun? Clearly they're mentally unstable and they did all these bad things and they're all over the internet, right? And all through the media. Why didn't you give this person? No is typically the easier answer for most people and most civil servants to give because they feel like it gives them greater control. Chris Voss has got that. He's that FBI negotiator that's never split the difference. And he's a guy that really pushes. He says, I'm so tired of hearing people trying to get yes answers out of people. That's an old, false way of thinking. Get no answers and no-oriented questions. I say apply that to dealing with a firearms officer. Is there any reason why you can't issue this in the next 3 days? Well, no, right? Have that no answer work in your favor.
Yeah.
Is there any reason why the information I provide you would not would fall short of being acceptable? Well, no, right? The second you get them to say, well, yes, on this one, okay, what? And now they're wearing it again, and the onus is on them in order to be able to, they're going to have to defend that decision. Yeah. So that would be more the approach that I take. It's not about tricking people.
No.
And there's also the tacit approval, which may or may not work for some people too. So I am going out and I'm carrying my handgun and I'm going to be doing it on this day and this time. I've provided you all of the information. Unless you provide me some information or reason why I can't do that or that would be unlawful, I will be taking it out.
And I think we actually might have gone that way, Travis, with my particular application because it had been prolonged. I was at the end of trapping season, and it wasn't until I had put a timeline on it saying, look, like my partner was gone. I'm going to be out on the snow machine. Right. And I have intention. I will be going to check my traps at this time. You know, is this going to be permissible? No. Or no, how did I say that?
Is this permissible is still waiting for a yes or no. Because if they don't answer...
What did we say?
Right. Unless you tell me otherwise, I will be doing this.
Yes, unless you tell me otherwise. We use some wordage to that point. And unfortunately, it was until that time that I kept getting stagnated in my application because it was several weeks and several months. And then all of a sudden, come March, the beginning of March, almost all the way through my trapping season, that's when I got the call saying, by the way, we have a problem with your application. You have a prohibited firearm.
Right, because they realize what happens. I guess, number one, they can ignore it. Like that's, if they really don't want to give it to you, that's probably their best option. And I've seen denial of licenses and authorizations and certificates through, what's the term, refusal through just non-engagement. Basically, they just ignore it. They figure this will go away. And then your only recourse is to go to court. Yeah. Right? And even then, that's not the best one. Honestly, a better recourse before then is go to the media. Yeah. Because the courts aren't set up in a way to hold the firearms office accountable just based on how it's set up. We can talk about that in a different podcast.
Absolutely.
But there is a massive public interest here.
Mm-hmm.
If we have a body that's out there that is actively denying individuals from being able to protect themselves in situations where they need to carry this handgun. It's a lawful legal thing to be able to do. So if they come back and say, yeah, no, you can't do that, we're going to just drag our feet some longer, it's going to look pretty bad on them. And they're now wearing that. If something happens to you and you go out there and you get hurt, so sometimes going that tacit route, I wouldn't go there right off the bat.
Hopefully not.
Right.
Worst case, But yeah, so that's a great answer. One of the other questions was, and I mean, are they still offering non-restricted courses? Yes. Because of the freeze. A lot of people have seen a retardation of the courses. Or sorry, let's rephrase that. Okay, cut to the editor, last stage. So let me rephrase the question. Start again. So a lot of people are wondering, are there still courses being offered for restricted permits? Because of the freeze, people maybe haven't seen them as often, or they're not as popular because people are hanging on the fence of, well, why would I get this if we obviously can't purchase a new firearm?
So you can actually purchase restricted firearms. There is no restricted firearm freeze. There's a handgun freeze. And that's where a lot of people get tied up. You also have businesses that'll have restricted firearms, working in the film industry, working in armor car industry, there's a lot of different industries that will need a restricted firearm. Trapping, guiding, free mining. It's a legitimate employment reason. So 100% get the restricted. I would tell absolutely everybody, if you're putting the time in to do the course, do non-restricted and restricted all at the same time. The reason being is we don't know what's going to happen in 2025. It's easier to do it all at once. It's less time to do it. The minimum time requirements are less if you're doing both of them within a certain time frame. And you don't know what the future is going to hold. Maybe your semi-automatic rifles are going to go on a restricted list. Maybe, and now you're licensed, right? So I would get maximum licensing you can. There's nothing wrong with having a little bit more knowledge, aside from the little bit more money that it costs. 100% I'd do it.
So the last question that I've got here, and it had a lot of hits on it, stupid proof it as far as the process. So we are starting. If we could put it as ABCD, that would be easiest.
I don't think we can stupid proof it.
No.
And the reason I don't think we can stupid proof it is because of the fact that we have that human factor. If people want to understand my thoughts anyways on the human factor and what I've seen work, they'd have to listen to the entirety of this podcast. Go to the Firearms Program website, get your form 5491E, read through the requirements on there, read the Firearms Act regulations as it applies to authorizations to carry, and see that you actually meet those requirements, that you're working, and it's in a remote wilderness area.
Key on working.
Right. Do your proof of proficiency training as outlined. Put your application in.
Absolutely.
That would be the fastest, easiest way to do it. You can also call them up and get the questionnaire ahead of time. Just say, hey, I want the questionnaire. I'm going to fill it out. I'm going to put it through. Ask for an email address that you can send it to rather than mailing it. If you're mailing it, send it by certified mail so that you've got some sort of tracking and record of delivery receipt signed for. Email's easier, easy to copy, easy to have it, and
you can access it anywhere.
Yeah. And then follow up. Put that time frame on it and follow up.
The biggest thing is you can do all those steps, but it's on you at the end of the day. It's on you to practice. It's on you to shoot your pop. It's on you to follow up. They don't owe you anything.
Not at all.
And that's the biggest thing. That's why I stuck through it. And it was hard and it was frustrating at a lot of times. And it took a lot longer than I thought. But the process really made me appreciate the opportunity. And for those people that they qualify for it, you will hold it in that much more of a regard when you actually are successful. Because at the end of the day, as someone who's licensed with both ATC, wilderness, and trapping, I am I mean, as a guide and as a professional in the industry, one, I was always very super cognizant of it. Now, even more so, my actions are being watched, and I take pride in the process that I've gone through because it sets the stage for everyone else. I don't want to screw up and ruin it for you.
100%.
And I think that's the biggest thing is that you have to take it serious. At the end of anything, you have to take it serious. You have to give it the respect for the process. Because yes, as much as it is a legal opportunity for those of us that work in remote settings, there is a responsibility that comes with it.
Rachel, I think we've covered a lot of ground on this one. Now, whenever I get people calling me up and asking for help, I'll say, have you listened to this episode, right? Go through it from start to finish.
Absolutely.
That really gets the major nuts and bolts of the secret sauce out there into the public view for people to look at. I'd love to hear questions that people have. I'd love to see comments, other people who've been successful. Please let us know what your route was. People who've been unsuccessful want to let us know why. And after listening to this, if you have an idea of like, well, maybe it was one of these things, because I'll tell you, it's a part of the regulations here. They actually have to let you know why at the end for revocation. They talk all about that. Notice of refusal and revocation. They have to actually let you know and serve that information to you. So let's use this as a place where people can share their knowledge and maybe our shared goal of normalizing this process will be seen through.
Absolutely. And here's a 2025.
I love it.
Thank you, Travis.
Thank you.